On Point is brought to you by Crow Jamaica.
A very good evening and welcome to On Point. I'm Patria K.
And I'm Dennis Chung.
And we're going to walk you through the show today. Dennis, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm watching the impeachment process in the U.S. You watch that, and then you watch the Brexit situation, and what's happening with climate change, and you say, boy, can we go lower than what we are now?
Boy, you talk about climate change. The weather girl in me has my eyes set on Hurricane Lorenzo that's out there. It is the hurricane that actually traveled farthest. Ireland is actually on hurricane watch right now from the storm that started out in the waters of the Atlantic going up there. So I certainly have my eyes on that. But what I really have my eyes on is the storm that we're creating in Doha, Qatar at the IAAF World Championships. I mean,
Shelly and
oh my gosh, moment of magic. Moments of magic.
Dakers.
I love the fact that there's a diversification happening from the Jamaica side because there were concerns about, the future of certainly the sprinting factory label that Jamaica had for a long time, and to see us medal, quality medals in both the shot put and also the long jump make you think, there's an opportunity for us to take a look at some other options.
Let me tell you something. What is happening in our track and field consistently over the years, a lot of it is really coming from two coaches, You ever think about it?
Big ups.
Two coaches.
Big ups.
Stephen Francis
and Glenn Mills. Big ups to Stephen Francis, who has proven himself as a great coach, not just
excellent,
athletic world beaters, not just track world beaters, but now with what he's done with Gail.
I think Stephen Francis is the best. For me, he is the best. Because he has not just produced them one or two in track, but the field events to be winning that. Because Trisha Gay Smith was under him also.
Wow.
He's a fantastic person. I've never met him yet, but my hats off to him. Him and Glenn Mills. I think they've really carried this thing far.
Best in the world, worth their weight. There are concerns, however, though, that when you took a look at the races where we were traditionally strong, the 200-meter males, there were no Jamaicans in that race. Shelley had to pull out of the 200-meter female. Where we were strong, are we losing the talent? Have we lost sight on where we're strong? Because it's one thing to add, but if you're adding and taking away from another area, should we be concerned about track stars going forward?
I have a theory on that. Shelley, we know, is 32, right? It's not young for what she's doing, so which makes it much greater. But on the men's side, I remember Usain Bolt, he had a rant recently where he just said that the men were not putting in the work. And if you don't put in the work, irrespective of how talented you are, you're not going to get to that level. And remember that while we are improving, other people are improving also. And that's just my theory on it.
Very interesting. Well, folks, we have a big show for you. Jamaica recently received a ratings upgrade from Standard & Poor's, taking a look at Jamaica's macroeconomy in the show today. Are we really ready to take off? We'll take a look at that.
But first, let's take a look back at some of the top business stories of the week.
At number 5, the U.S. has been given the go-ahead to impose tariffs on $7.5 billion worth of goods it imports from the European Union. This is the latest in a 15-year battle between the U.S. and the EU over illegal subsidies for playmakers Airbus and rival Boeing. The World Trade Organization WTO's ruling will mean tariffs on EU goods ranging from aircraft to cheese come October 18. Brussels has threatened to retaliate similarly against U.S. goods. And at number 4, U.S. clothing store Forever 21 has filed for bankruptcy and plans to close up to 350 stores globally. The chain could close as many as 178 underperforming stores in the U.S., though it will have sales and rent negotiations until December 31. Though Forever 21 is still operating stores and its online business, an expert says individuals who are holding gift cards from the company should redeem them as soon as possible. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Forever 21 says the company's discussions about U.S. store closures are still ongoing. At number 3, the Bank of Jamaica BOJ says it will be maintaining the policy interest rate offered on overnight balances from deposit-taking institutions at 0.5%. The BOJ says this decision is based on its current assessment that prevailing monetary conditions are generally appropriate to support the achievement of the inflation target range of 4 to 6% over the next 4 to 8 quarters. At number 2, the Jamaican economy grew by 1.3% for the second quarter of 2019 when compared to the similar quarter of 2018. This resulted from improved performances in both the goods-producing industries and the services industries. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin says the positive performance of the goods-producing industries was due to higher levels of output in manufacturing and mining and quarrying. And at number 1 this week, Trans-Jamaican Highway is going public. The government says it will be putting up shares through an initial public offering IPO. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says in privatizing government assets through listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the administration hopes to get more Jamaicans to own aspects of the country's productive sector. He says the Trans-Jamaican Highway IPO will be the largest in Jamaica's history. NCB Capital Markets will be the lead arranger.
When we come back, gauging Jamaica's economic pulse right here on Point.
Doggin Global Introduction. Doggin Global is an integrated multidisciplinary professional service firm. We are integrated as one firm and provide several professional services, including audit, accounting, tax, IT, risk, HR, performance, M&A, corporate recovery, and other advisory services. The firm is organized in several professional service units, which includes Doggin Auditors, Doggin Advisors, Doggin Legal, Doggin Finance, Doggin HR Solutions, Doggin Tech Solutions, Doggin Media, Doggin Corporate Secretarial. If you are interested in any of our services, please contact us for a free quote. Email info@doggin.global. Website doggin.global.
Every day you wake up, you have another opportunity to make this little island better, safer, a place where we all can be proud to call home. It's time we all recognize that every little thing we do has an impact on the Jamaica we live in now and the country we're leaving for our children. So promise me this, promise yourself this: no more will we tolerate criminals, even if it's our relatives. Tell them they're doing something wrong. Tell them to stop. Tell them no more robbing our children of the Jamaica they deserve. Tell them no more crime.
Welcome back, folks, to On Point. Now, Standard & Poor's have upgraded Jamaica's credit rating from a B to a B+. Take a listen.
Ratings agency Standard & Poor's S&P has upgraded the government of Jamaica's long-term foreign and local currency rating to B+ from B. S&P has also affirmed the B rating on the country's short-term foreign and local currency sovereign credit ratings. Meanwhile, S&P Global Ratings also raised its transfer and convertibility assessment to BB- from B+. The ratings agency says Jamaica's outlook remains stable. S&P says the ratings upgrade reflects Jamaica's sustained progress in achieving improving macroeconomic stability and strengthening its external liquidity, which improved the country's ability to withstand external shocks. The ratings agency also cited its anticipated continuation of public sector reforms and the establishment of an independent fiscal council as critical factors to promote sustainable fiscal practices and deepen government accountability in a post-International Monetary Fund (IMF) standby arrangement environment. S&P says the outlook was affirmed based on the government's willingness to continue maintaining robust primary fiscal surpluses, which will support a gradual reduction in debt and interest burdens and help to boost external reserves. In the meantime, the ratings agency says it also expects the country will be able to maintain its growth momentum with modest GDP growth and that the government will continue advancing toward a more effective monetary policy framework for the central bank, including a more flexible exchange rate. A two-member team from Standard & Poor's visited Jamaica in May to conduct the annual review.
And joining us now to talk about the S&P upgrade and Jamaica's overall economic health are two newbies. The new IMF representative to Jamaica, Mr. Kareem Youssef, and the co-chair and the newly anointed president of the PSOJ, Mr. Keith Duncan. Welcome to On Point, gentlemen.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Got to say congratulations on the completion of a successful IMF program.
Sure.
I'm going to start with you, Keith, because EPOC had a heavy hand in ensuring that you steadied the ship in some of that. Talk to me about that work.
I believe EPOC had a role to play. There was the will. The will was there by both administrations through the first the Extended Fund Facility from 2013 through 2016, and from 2016 and 2019 with the precautionary standby arrangement, there was political will. The country was galvanized around an economic reform program. EPOC was there in a monitoring role, being very supportive and really ensuring that we hit the targets, we made the policy commitments, and we hit our structural benchmarks. And the criteria, the performance criteria, a big help, the behind the scenes, and not necessarily behind the scenes, but very overt, IMF was right there providing technical assistance, providing guidance, always holding us to account also. So therefore, it was a huge team effort to get Jamaica to where we are today. You know, but it took the political administrations on both sides of the political fence to ensure that we got here. And that shows when we're united as a country, what we can achieve.
Kareem, I'm saying welcome to Jamaica. You are going to be with us for the next 2.5 years, but it's not your first time here.
No, I've been here 16 times. This is my 17th in the last 2.5 years, and I love Jamaica. So.
Absolutely fantastic. So you would have been able to take a kind of bird's eye view, an outsider's look at what happened with the program.
Sure.
Your own perspective. On what Jamaica achieved.
My favorite words to use in this particular case is really a Cinderella story. As Keith put his finger on the right spot, I think it's an amazing example of ownership at all levels, across administrations. The level of understanding and appreciation for the amount of reform, the substantial amount of reform that had to be undertaken over 6.5 years, goes from the top policymakers in the country all the way down to the taxi cab driver and the everyday person on the street. It is a true achievement in that regard. If you look at fund programs throughout history, you'll rarely find a situation like this where the level of ownership across all segments of society of the reforms was truly there.
But Keith, coming back to that Patricia started out with, I mean, here we are now, right? Where would you say we are now in relation to where we need to be, and what do we need to do? We still need to be cautious about some things, eh?
Oh, for sure. I mean, our debt to GDP levels are down to 90-odd%, and that's significantly ahead of where we were 6 years ago, coming from as high as 147%. That's all good. We are running fiscal surpluses, meaning that we are earning more than we are spending. That's all good, so that is being reduced. However, so the economic reform program is on track. However, growth still eludes us in a real way. We're still hovering below 2%, 1.5% on average. However, there is growth, consecutive growth for 17 quarters. However, there are other areas of the economy that we need to do. We have structural deficiencies we need to fix. Crime is an issue. Access to finance for small and medium enterprises is an issue because they are the engine of growth. So therefore, while we have put in place, the the reform program. No, we need to build on this now to really move our economy forward, to have inclusive growth. And it's the small and medium enterprises that are the engine of the economy outside of our large corporates, because corporates have access to finance, but what we're not seeing is the access to finance from where we want creativity and innovation to grow, which is our small and medium enterprises. So we know really, and so there's a whole effort over the past year or so, the Minister of Finance with his tax give back to ensure removal of minimum business tax, increasing the GCT threshold. There are a slew of things that have been procurement recently in SMEs to be able to produce, provide 20% of the government, but behind that there's work to be done because there's still a lot of bureaucracy. So even if a small and medium enterprise provide services or goods, for him to get through the procurement is a lot of bureaucracy. So there's work to be done behind all of these deliverables.
But Keith, it kind of feels like looking back in hindsight, we're able to explain away things because we started out the last 3.5 years ago with huge optimism.
Right.
We started out with a target of 5 in 4.
Right.
And the conversation from all sectors was this is doable.
Yes.
So what happened in those projections?
Yes, I
what
would say
happened to those projections?
You know, the official projections in the under the economic program was like maybe 2 to 3%. The aspirational target was 5 in 4, and there's nothing wrong with having an aspirational target. But we had structural deficiencies in our economy. Those need to be dealt with before we can really get to the potential of our economy. And those areas have to be addressed before we can get there. So we started out with huge optimism, yes, because we were on a path. But there is a sobering lesson to be learned that you have to deal with the major issues that we have.
Impediments.
You know, because while we have said, you know, I mean, over the last 20, 30 years, Jamaica has lived from economic crisis to economic crisis to economic crisis. We have finally settled down in that regard. But what occurred over that period is that we didn't strengthen our institutions. We didn't invest in our police force. We didn't give them the tools. We didn't train them to be able to really police effectively. You know what I mean? We didn't give them the capacity. So now we're at a place now where crime is an issue because we didn't strengthen our institutions. Water, when last we built a dam? 40, 50 years ago.
Can we afford to put in those kinds of strengthening of institutions at the risk of where we are now and the economic stability that we're achieving?
We won't risk it because as fiscal space opens up, you have to put in long-term plans to get Jamaica on the right track.
And if you don't do it, you're going to falter. So let me ask Karim.
Karim wanting to comment, yes.
If you can comment on that, Karim, but also within the context of things that were supposed to happen under the program, particularly public sector reform.
Sure. Just let's back up a little bit to the ratings conversation, right? Because that's where we started. If you consider where Jamaica was in 2013, in 2010, we were talking about I think what the ratings agencies call a selective default, or the NDX, right? That we went through in Jamaica in 2010 and 2013. We cannot ignore that the ratings cycle that took Jamaica from B in in the late 1990s down to a selective default situation, back to B plus now today. Look at the countries that are at a B plus rating. We're talking about Jordan, we're talking about Ukraine, I think we're talking about Bahrain. These are not bad neighbors to have. The outlook, as I understand from the S&P and from the ministry's press briefing on the ratings change, was that the outlook is stable. That reflects by the numbers, right? As Keith said, debt going down from 145% of GDP to under 100% of GDP. I think 95 was the latest print that I saw for the first time since fiscal year 2000-2001. That's not trivial. Inflation has come down from the neighborhood of 12% and above serially to 4%. And we're now trying to get monetary transmission back with some of the SME financing and so on to get it back to 5%, which is the target. Unemployment, it's the lowest historical level that I know of. It's 7.8% of latest print. These are all indications of an economy that is sufficiently stable and that has a profoundly robust policy framework in place. Now, what is the next step? The next step is putting in place these institutions, the Bank of Jamaica Act, the Fiscal Council, to make sure that the hard-won reforms that have brought us to this point are not reversed and are entrenched, right, for the foreseeable future, for forward-looking generations. Now, in terms of what was supposed to happen and what didn't happen, I would turn that on its head a little bit, and I would say, now that you've stabilized the economy, now that you have a robust policy framework to bring you into the future, what you need to do is to think about the structural impediments, the structural constraints that are in the economy: crime, the provision of services through the public sector and the efficiency of that. That's a conversation that needs to be had. Someone told me that a conversation around public sector transformation is necessarily political. Perhaps so, but on the other hand, it is a question of what do we want from our public sector. If you look around the globe, you look at a public sector that is able to not necessarily use as much labor, instead using capital, using technology in order to provide services to the population. Naturally, that creates efficiencies and creates space. Right? Creates fiscal space, creates room to work on roads, to work on protecting the population, to protect them from crime, and to reduce crime, not just on the end of catching criminals, but also on the ability to reduce crime ex ante, on look at the services and the social safety net that allows people to remain in school.
But on that very vein, that's been one of the most difficult things for the Ministry of Finance to tackle. You're talking about a wage bill that's been difficult for them to look at. You're talking about incentives that are numerous and allowances that are numerous, that we got to this place because people weren't able to pay off of the kinds of increases that the teachers wanted, the police officers wanted, and so the spread became wider. How do you narrow that without upsetting the very people that you serve?
I think the beautiful thing of the EPOC experience is that you have to get broad-based support and engagement to have a conversation about what it is that we're trying to do, as opposed to having parallel tracks of the conversation that are happening, saying this is what the government is trying to do, and the government is responding saying no, that's not what we're trying to do. It has to be a broader political and social will.
Yeah. On that note, Keith, and you would know more about this. As an accountant, one of the things that I'm always bothered by is the fact that we have not been considering enough our pension liabilities that are upcoming. Because that's a massive problem, isn't it?
Right, it is. I mean, and Kareem knows it well in terms of how that can get out of control. I think over the last couple of years, in terms of the contribution, the pension contributions, and having the civil servants contribute, is a step in the right direction.
But that's just a drop in the bucket to the problem.
In the right direction, yes. But you have to see. I think I think the Minister of Finance and the Civil Service and the government of Jamaica is very much aware of the issue, and I think they're working towards making it sustainable. You know what I mean? I think there was a whole the National Insurance Fund and NIS. There are reforms occurring there that we should start moving that issue and starting to minimize that, close that gap, which is important, Dennis. You're absolutely right.
But again, if I may chime in on that, if you consider the situation in Jamaica and how the characteristics of situations where pensions get into trouble, usually there's not a private capital market, there's not a vibrant financial system. That's not the situation in Jamaica. Now, the key thing right now is to support as much as possible the creation of an asset base, a domestic asset base, that is available for pension funds to invest in, for pensioners to look at towards the future.
And that's an interesting opportunity for the government that they've been taking on. We look at things like Wigtown and the divestment of Wigtown. We're hearing about the highway coming up in just a little while. They're doing an IPO on that. And so we're looking at different kind of models to get average people to participate in the financial conversation. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the capital markets and the stock market and investing in through into equities, in initial public offers, in divesting and outsourcing of government of Jamaica entities. It's all positive. It's owning a piece of the pie. It's understanding how business works. It's financial literacy. It's people sharing in the profits of businesses. You know, because I think Jamaicans on a whole need to understand, in order for them to work hard and they have work hard, earn their money, but they have to allow their money to work hard for them also. And it's not necessarily going to work hard in a savings account. Mm-hmm. You have to have a diversified portfolio of assets across stock markets, across bonds, across real estate. So your money really works hard for you, so that you, at the end of the day, you have a sustainable into your pension years. You do have a nest egg that you have built up, and you're sustainable.
Well, Keith, you are someone who your day job is in the capital markets, right?
Yes.
But your recently acquired job as president of PSOJ, how do you see the role of the PSOJ in helping to build this economy?
Well, we're focused on a couple of areas. We're building on the platform set by the previous administration of the PSOJ on the whole, which is leadership. One, top of the agenda is crime, making it a national conversation and not a political conversation. You know, it's a crisis. We are in a crisis when it comes to crime. Our crime rate is at 47 murders per 100,000, coming down from 60. That's not normal. The average in the Caribbean and Latin America is 16 per 100,000. We have normalized this above 1,000 level of murders a year. We have to recognize and understand that we are in a crisis situation. The same way we're in an economic crisis and we got together as a country and we're able to stabilize ourselves, have macroeconomic stability, low interest rates, we can do the same with crime, but it takes a national effort to do so. And the PSOJ must stand behind this being a national effort and minimize the political kind of divisiveness around it.
But Keith, the question is then going to be, what is that going to look like in a real and practical way? Are you going to be watchdog? Are you going to be financier of the projects? Are you going to be consultant? Should the idea generation be coming out of the PSOJ? We know that the requirement is there for the public-private partnership, but what will it tangibly look like?
Or the past president of the PSOJ, Mr. Howard Mitchell, was calling for a national kind of broad consultation, but it may take some kind of oversight mechanism. So therefore, you know, we have Partnership for Prosperity, that grouping. How is it that they get together and provide that oversight and pull Jamaica together? You know, there in the toolkit to fight crime, you have suppression, which is state of emergencies. You have building capacity and capability of the security forces. You know, and be able to investigate DNA, forensic, all of these things. More police, more, and you know, and I'm saying the scientific way to really investigate. And then you have social intervention. These are the three prongs of dealing with crime. So therefore, what's that right formula? While you deal with suppression to really take down that murder rate, what are you doing to build capacity so the police and the army and the security forces can really manage what we have on our plate?
So the role of the private sector is to ask the right questions of our
facilitate
officials?
as much as possible that conversation so we get on the same page. We have heard the Prime Minister say that the SOEs are part of a toolkit which they want to use over time. For the next 5 to 7 years, he said, you know, at various places where there are hotspots, where you really have too many murders, you have too many violence producers, take down the murder rate while you build your capacity so that the police can effectively manage the caseload that they have.
But the government's going to be knocking on your door to pay for certain things. They're going to be knocking on your door to ensure that all of your cameras are in the Jamaica Eye network.
That's why we have taxes. We pay taxes.
Yes.
Right.
People are going to be pressing against the private sector and saying, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is?
Of course, the private sector has stepped up in the past and will step up. You know, everyone has a corporate social responsibility framework, and I'm sure if we galvanize the nation around crime, the private sector will be there leading and providing whatever support that we can. But we need to make it a national conversation, and I think it's just a matter of building trust between all parties.
And crime's already costing you?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's actually a very, very important point.
Let's pick it up on the other side of the break, that cost of crime to the private sector, to the country, after the break.
Internal audit. Internal audit service is vital when organizations aim to achieve reliable financial reports and regulatory compliance, navigating risks, streamlining operations, and promoting stakeholder confidence. The benefits of a high-quality internal audit are limitless, especially when you secure yours from a firm with deep industry experience, exposure to hundreds of organizations, dedicated professionals, and proven methodologies. Whether you're looking to establish an internal audit function, attain or maintain compliance with various regulations, mitigate your risk of fraud, or gain an overall assessment of your internal controls, you can count on Dodgen Global for reliable and timely business solutions. We've helped organizations nationwide and across industries to establish internal control structures, create an internal audit function, or improve an existing one, and maintain regulatory compliance. We provide ongoing education as regulations and public perceptions change. We are trusted advisors for management and boards. External auditors can be confident in our work and its results. Let Dodgen Global be a turnkey solution for your organization. Our team can help you make smarter, more effective decisions. Let's have a conversation. Contact us at email info@dodgen.global. Website https://dodgen.global.
It's the only show that traces the steps of professionals.
From first and second form, I was involved in some club, some activity.
Then gives information on exactly how to get into that same career.
You do need a good grasp of English.
And now you can branch out into whatever area you want to.
Tune in every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for Career Moves and catch up on all our episodes at batvja.com.
Welcome back to On Point. We're continuing our exciting conversation with our new IMF rep to Jamaica and the president and co-chair of the Economic Policy Oversight Committee. Karim, you wanted to come in earlier about the cost of crime to Jamaica, because as an outsider, I mean, you're not a citizen yet, but maybe not at
He says yes.
I keep waiting on that passport. No, look, I mean, I think that's an important, very important issue to consider and to talk about, because the cost of crime to the economy is not trivial. From preliminary analytical work that I've done looks at simply what would happen if we were to cut the murder rate, the homicide rate in Jamaica by half.
What's that finding?
To reach world average. That would structurally increase growth by 0.5 percentage point, structurally.
Just that act?
Just that act alone. Now consider what the secondary effects of homicides are on families, on the ability of children to be educated properly, to grow in an environment that allows them to reach their full cognitive powers and capacities. Consider the effects of corruption in communities. All of that is unmeasured. So it is not a trivial thing. Now, the beautiful thing is that the structural impediments that have resulted in lower access to finance in many of the communities across Jamaica are much the same that have resulted in the situations that we're seeing across the island. If you were to deal with the SME financing gap, as the IFC calls it, there's this database, the IFC has this database called the Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Financing Gap. Yeah. They estimate around 2.6 billion US in pent-up demand by SMEs in Jamaica. If you were to deal with that, US, if you were to deal with that concurrently with crime, with just homicides, right, you would increase growth structurally by 1 percentage point. So these are the kinds of things that I think behooves not just the public sector but the private sector to work together in tackling.
And the only members that perhaps smile at this crime conversation are the security firms, and I'm sure they don't smile either, because all of your members, the cost of operations, when you look at their budgets and what they spend on security guards and camera systems and alarms and
not ability to run shifts and to have people work through the, through the night. I mean, it's a challenge, you know what I mean? But we can get there, you know. We just need a fixture of purpose, as we had with the economic reform program. We need people. We need the same political will that we had through over both administrations to agree and say this is the way forward, and let us really look to deal with the crime monster and really have to deal with people. So therefore, the social intervention piece, can't stand alone. But it has to be there to provide the young, unattached male with hope. That there is hope for them, that they can start a little small business, that they can get trained at heart, that they can get a job. We need to provide that hope, because right now they're not seeing the alternatives. You know what I mean? And we see the success stories when we get to them and we get the ability to change their mindset. What can happen? Jamaican people are resilient, brilliant people, right? All we need to do is just to work on the social intervention piece, work on minimizing through suppression the murder rate, while we build the capacity of the force to really be able to manage what we have.
Because, Kareem, I mean, you coming from outside of Jamaica, you'd have seen many structural reforms take place. One of the casualties of economic depression is that you tend to lose a generation or two of people to productivity. Is not so? And then the other question is, can we truly address our homicide and major crime problem without public order?
There's no doubt that productive capacity is lost when you have economic crisis, when you have public health crises, when you have natural disasters, and similarly in communities across the world, not just in Jamaica, when you have significant crime problems. And that is why it is extremely important to maintain the current climate of good policy frameworks. We were talking earlier about the Bank of Jamaica law, which enshrines into law the way an independent central bank operates. There's a discussion around the Fiscal Council, which is envisioned to enshrine into law not just the 60% of GDP financial fiscal responsibility law in 25-26 for public debt, but also the way a discussion around budgets occurs, which is already, by the way, very advanced in Jamaica. Now the question is, how do you get to a point where you've anchored your policy over the medium term sufficiently in a robust way so that you have room to tackle all of these things, right? You have room not just on the private sector balance sheets, but also on the public sector balance sheet.
Yeah, so
what about the public order issue?
Making over the reform program and making the fiscal reforms and the success we have had, making it sustainable. And that's what the independent central bank will provide, that's what the Fiscal Council will provide. That is what the disaster risk insurance would provide, ensuring that we have a sustainable framework going forward, that we can, we can continue with our fiscal rules to reduce our debt to GDP, increase the room for the government to spend in these areas where we need support: crime, health, infrastructure, water. All of these areas that we have ignored because we ran a terrible economy over the last 40 years.
So I want to find out how the mechanism will work. 4 entities that are to be at play: the IMF, a central bank that is now independent, a Ministry of Finance, and an EPOC.
Yes.
How will those 4 players work in the financial future of Jamaica, say the next year or 2 years?
Well, for the next year, we know that the life of EPOC has been extended for another year. This is until the Fiscal Council is in place, yes. The legislation is in place, and the regulations are in place that embed it. And secondly, and when the central bank the legislation and regulations are in place, then we know they are in place and operational, staffed, and up and running. The central bank is already staffed. No, it has the legitimate central bank independence. In other words, they have full responsibility for inflation targeting, for managing inflation, And the Fiscal Council will have the responsibility for looking at budgets, looking at how sound the plans are, the government of Jamaica's budget and fiscal plans are, to ensure that we remain sustainable and we remain consistent with our fiscal rules of taking down our debt.
So the council stress tests the budget?
Yes, man, and they have a technical capacity. EPOC, we're all volunteers. So we're reviewing reports on a monthly basis. The Bank of Jamaica reports in, the Ministry of Finance.
But you're also on the corner too.
We're on the corner too, because we have to tell, we have to get Jamaican people engaged at all levels around why this thing is important, that you don't spend more than you earn, because if you don't spend more than you earn, you get into debt and you get into problem. And so we're saying we have to run a sustainable country, sustainable financial affairs of our country must be run in a very responsible manner.
And how does Kareem and the IMF fit in all of that?
Well, Kareem, you explain that.
Since your audience is, I think much of your audience is a business community, so I'll use business speak, which I am more comfortable with than fund speak, so to speak. So look, the fund has three main activities. Our core business lines are effectively lending when there are crises, which are programs. We do what is called surveillance, which is sort of a every 12 month or every 24 month, depending on the country, health check of the policies, of the framework for the policies, of the direction of the policies.
And how often will that happen for Jamaica?
So the last one was in 2018. The next one, I believe, is slotted to be in March or April 2020. So very shortly. And then the last business line that we spend, actually, that much of fund staff spend a lot of time and effort on, is what's called capacity development or technical assistance. We've been involved in all three business lines so far in Jamaica over the last 6.5 years, because the Article 4 consultations are ongoing even during programs. Technical assistance and capacity development has been ongoing. I myself personally have been involved in at least 3 of those during the program in the last 2.5 years, and that will continue in areas such as the Fiscal Council, in areas relating to developing markets, developing the FX market, developing debt markets, and any other areas that are identified by the authorities. The most important thing is that the fund plays the same role in Jamaica that it does in its 189 member countries, which is a trusted advisor that comes and has a conversation about.
I still have a question. I just want to find out one thing on that whole operations. One of the things that we were able to do well with the IMF program is that across administrations we were singing the same song.
Yes.
How confident are you? How comfortable are you that the kind of progress that we have made, that the kind of structures that have been put in place will withstand a change in administration if that happens?
I believe with the fiscal rules in place, that is enshrined in law, 60% debt to GDP, 9% wages and salaries of GDP. There are fiscal rules. There's a framework in place, a legal framework. There is, a reporting framework is in place. For example, just last week, a new fiscal policy paper was tabled in Parliament, and this is around updating a supplemental budget to see where we are, and recasting projections based on where the economy is. You know what I mean? So therefore, there are frameworks that are in place that protect us.
Accountability.
But quite important is the Fiscal Council, central bank independence, and the contingency around disaster risk, and ensuring that we can sustain natural disasters, hurricanes, etc. So we need to make our country sustainable. I think we have a legal framework in place. I believe that, and the fiscal rules in place, if you break those fiscal rules, you're breaking the law.
And there are consequences.
Right.
Well, I want to follow, it's something similar to what Patricia asked, but I want to approach it in a different way, because you're the PSOJ president.
Yes, sir.
You are the IMF rep, and it is very likely, high probability, that you both will be here for the next round of elections. Should you start talking to the political people now about how that is going to be dealt with when the silly season comes?
Yes. Well, most definitely. I think you just started the conversation, so we can start signaling it from now that don't get too silly in the silly season. Stay within the rules. Balance that budget, hit our targets because that's worked for us. We can see. We're able to spend $20 billion on national security last year in building out infrastructure, fixing the police stations, buying the equipment we need, buying the cars that the police need, buying the bikes that the police need, because we have remained fiscally responsible and take down our debt levels. Interest rates have come down. That's why we can afford to spend that kind of money on the things that we need as a country. So we get crime under control. We need to focus on education. We need to focus on health. We need to focus on water. Too much people suffering from water because we ignored water for many, many years. We didn't deal with it as a long-term thing. We just fix and do quick fixes and didn't do it. So therefore, in the same way we fix our economy, we need to fix these other areas where we have crises because we never manage our economy well. If we didn't manage our economy well before, we wouldn't have all these other issues.
So how do you deal with the conversation?
Well, it's funny, right? Because I'm Egyptian American, so I have no idea what silly season looks like. No, I mean, in all seriousness, look, I think the beautiful thing about Jamaica, right, at this moment, and the unique thing about Jamaica in this moment is that there is this buy-in that Keith spoke about at every level of society. Once you set up the institutions of an independent central bank, once you set up the institution of the fiscal council, it's going to become very difficult for any national conversation to draw outside of the lines of what is being discussed by those institutions, what is being developed by those institutions in terms of a policy thrust. And that, I think, is the secret sauce, right? If you think about where Canada was in the 90s as far as the fiscal situation. And you consider that once that political will, that public will came into play, it became impossible for decades for any government to run on large deficits. I think that's where we're on the cusp.
And so the future of Jamaica is very much dependent on those measures.
Those institutions.
Absolutely.
Those institutions.
Welcome again to Jamaica.
Thank you very much.
Keith,
thank you.
You have your work cut out for you. A long road ahead, but congratulations. All right, folks, we take a break right here on Point. When we come back, we'll talk some more.
Crow Jamaica Risk Management Services, RMS. Risk management has become indispensable to a company's business operations and management strategy in this complex environment nowadays. Crow Jamaica risk management experts help to turn every risk into an opportunity. We are experienced in providing customized solutions to manage risks and increase transparency and accountability of the companies. Our core services include internal audit, internal control review, corporate governance, corporate compliance, etc. Our team can help you make smarter, more effective decisions. Let's have a conversation. Contact us at email people@crowjm.com, website www.crowjm.com.
It's season 12, and Wealth Magazine Business Access is here to keep you business savvy. With an impressive mix of some of Jamaica's most inspiring business moguls, we continue to keep Jamaica informed, empowered, and ready to dominate. Tune in Sundays at 5 p.m. only on BATV.
You're watching
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access TV.
Serious about business.
Welcome back to On Point. Now, the first supplementary estimate was tabled in the House of Representatives on Tuesday for this financial year, with the government planning to spend an extra $50.15 billion. What's that money going to be spent on? Take a look at the numbers.
The total amount the government plans to spend for the 2019-2020 fiscal year is $853.39 billion. The total increase in the overall budget is in recurrent or housekeeping spending, which is proposed to move from $731.12 billion to $781.28 billion. The capital budget remains the same at $72.1 billion, with some reallocation of funds within ministries. Public debt servicing gets the largest increase in recurrent allocation of $45.49 billion. Among the portfolio areas, the Ministry of National Security's housekeeping budget moves from $24.6 billion to $26.1 billion. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information will receive an increase of approximately $1 billion, moving its total to $107.5 billion. $1 billion has been added to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation's $7.26 billion recurrent budget, and the Local Government and Community Development Ministry is receiving $448.8 million more, bringing its total to $12.1 billion. On the capital side, $5 billion in additional allocation has been made under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation for spending on construction and improvement to arterial roads under the Major Infrastructure Development Program MIDP.
And our On Point team hit the streets and asked, are you feeling the benefits of a more stable Jamaican economy?
The effects of a stable economy is not necessarily trickling down to the individual persons, and that is where the greatest, while you might see it in the macro, in the micro it is not trickling down to the individual small men. So there's, in some sector you might see that there are improvements, but on the level of the individual man that walks in the street, the individual person who takes the bus, the people that who basically at the middle income bracket is not necessarily feeling so.
No, it doesn't seem that way. The US dollar is keep going, it's not dropping, so I mean there's no positivity in that.
No, I don't feel it. It don't come in my direction.
No. No. Like I don't know, I think like everything just seems like a struggle these days. Like even alright, so for example, if you're trying to stabilize yourself and you want to go to the bank and, you know, try something, like everything is just so much work. It's so complicated, more than it needs to be. You need to get so much references from this person, that person. So it's kind of difficult for a lot of different people. So, I mean, I can say that there are changes being made, but there's still a whole lot of work to be done, and it's still kind of rough out there.
I don't have a problem with Jamaica economy. I have always survived because I've always tried to help myself. So if it's up, I'll be up too, and if it's down, I'll be down. But I never at any time wait on anybody to help me.
Well, I think that the currency has not been doing very well. I mean, I think we're probably nearing 140 now. So you would think that a stable economy, our dollar would have recapitalized, but it's not. So we're actually seeing the effects of our dollar going down. So that's not good. And if sooner or later, it's bound to result in some level of price increases all around. Also, crime. You would think that better economy, stable dollar would have a greater impact on our crime. Our crime has actually skyrocketed. You know, I've heard more people say in the past year that they're more afraid of just living in Jamaica. So we have not reaped the benefits where crime is concerned.
Yes, I am. Because I'm getting more lunch money.
Quite honestly, I don't know if it's more stable. Personally, it doesn't feel like, because more expenses, and I'm not spending any differently. But then again, yeah, more expenses. Everything increased except my pay. But I guess in terms of businesses, they are driving, I guess. But then you look at the industry, it's the people getting laid off from work more. So is that really a stability, or people suffering because of it to make it more stable?
Right now, we still the minimum wage, you know, and it no move. We not benefit. Prosperity not reach we. You don't see the big rich man them. Porsche store open now, you know. You just walk in and buy a Porsche and come out. The Benz things turn up, the Jaguar thing turn up. poor people still feel it.
Yeah, that's good because this good, business is good.
I'm 36. I'm a husband, a manager, and still very good looking. In 2 hours, I have the most important meeting of my life. But first, it's time to play. The new Suzuki Vitara.
The business community has suffered tremendously due to extortion. Some have not just lost their businesses, their jobs, but lost their lives. This is extremely impactful to the growth of our country and to the progress of our people. We are our brother's keeper. Let's put a stop to this. No more use of force. No more use of fear. No more extortion. No more.
Well, that was an interesting one. I know that
Yes.
one was straight up your alley, being the numbers man, being the accountant.
I think that we've made a lot of progress as a country. I think we have much stronger institutions than many of the Caribbean countries, other Caribbean countries out there. So I think we're on a good path. The only thing that we need to do is ensure that we understand we're not at the finish line yet. And as Keith and Kamir said, we need to ensure we stay the path. We need to build the stronger institutions and make sure it's sustainable, because we're not sustainable yet. We still have a way to go. We still have 1 or 2 generations that really have been lost through the economic crisis that we saw. We have educational problems, we have public order problems. Once we can fix those things, then I think we'll be in a better place.
I love the way that things have become more participatory.
Yeah.
Where all areas of society have gotten involved in the economic conversation. I think that's going to augur well for us in the economic future. So it's not just about government doing what they do, and then 5-10 years down the road, we're kind of dealing with the consequences. And I think one of the reasons it's so important that we have the institutions like EPOC, but also a very strong opposition, is that they can be the harbor shark, they can be the watchdog, they can, before the button is pressed, to be able to spend the country's money recklessly, that people can kind of hold people accountable. And so I think I celebrate that from the IMF program and the role that EPOC was able to play, but also the opposition and also civic society. And my hope is that going forward, we continue to play that role, because it's our money.
Yeah, everybody has a role to play. I mean, we definitely need a strong opposition. Coming into 2020, it's highly likely that we can have an election next year. My greatest fear is that we need to ensure that we don't fall back into the situation where the politics is trumping the economics. We don't want to get back there, or we're going to have a major, major problem.
I know one of the things that I'm happy that happened, and perhaps it is, I've noticed it, the televised PAC meetings, these televised checks and balances and stress testing things that are put on the table, and asking questions about the accounts on both sides of the divide, and defending the positions that you take, and people being able to sit at home and watch it and say yes or no, and write letters to the editor and make comments and call into talking shows, I really think has done us well.
Well, let me tell you something. One thing a lot of people don't understand about Jamaica now. Jamaica has one of the best free press situations in the world, in terms of press freedom. Do you think is not many countries, even developed countries, people can go on the radio and talk like what they're talking?
And I love it. I love it, because it's our country, it's our money, and it's the betterment of our nation. Gotta say thanks to the folks who make the show happen every week. You did it again. Thank you so much to the hardworking crew. Thanks also to the sponsors and you at home for tuning in week after week. I'm Patria K.
And I'm Dennis Strong.
See you next time on Point.
On Point was brought to you by Crow Jamaica.
We are back with another exciting, innovative, and inspiring season.
It takes a lot of stick-to-itiveness, being consistent and persistent in whatever you're doing. That's the bottom line.
Business exists to add value to people's lives. And if we're not doing that, might as well we lock down the store and just call it a day.
It's a season 3 of Creating Wealth, Mondays at 8 p.m. on Business Access TV.
They say it takes a village to raise a child, but the world will one day need the leadership of that child. The time you spend with your child matters. It stimulates their minds and shapes the way they act. Talk with your children. Help them to better understand the world around them and to value what is truly precious. Above all, the most valuable gift you can give them is love. Play, talk, teach, love. Take the time. It makes all the difference. A message from the Parenting Helpline and Ad Council Jamaica.
Hi there, thanks for joining us on another Jamaica Magazine program. I'm Theodore Henry, your companion for the next half hour. Though we officially observed World Teachers' Day on Saturday, we're still celebrating the men and women who've dedicated their lives to education. Before we get there, however, let's look at public safety on this week's edition of Get the Facts. You don't want to miss a minute of it, so stay tuned.
Did you know that you can apply for a copy of your birth certificate online or by visiting any of the Registrar General's department offices listed on their website? For ease of processing, there are several things you need to know about the person or child whose birth certificate you are applying for. Here's a checklist. Ensure you know the correct name and spelling of the person, as well as their mother and father. You will need their date and place of birth, which is usually the name of the hospital or location they were born. Parish of birth is also important. Find out also the birth entry number along with the date and place of registration for the adult or child. Remember, for additional information on how you can apply for a copy of your birth certificate or someone else's, contact the Registrar General's Department today.
This week on Get the Facts, Assistant Commissioner of Police Dr. Kevin Blake joins us to discuss public safety and traffic enforcement on our nation's roads.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Anthros Campbell. The Jamaica Constabulary Force, the JCF, has increased its capacity to improve the safety of citizens as well as restore and maintain public order with the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB. What kind of impact is this entity having? What are the plans going forward? To provide us with that information is Head of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB, ACP Kevin Blake. Dr. Blake, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
So good to have you. What would you say are the benefits of having this special entity?
Okay, well, good. PSTEB, the purpose of PSTEB and its role, its mandate, is, as the name suggests, public safety and traffic enforcement. So important is the issue of public safety and traffic enforcement that the organization found it necessary to establish a formation headed by an assistant commissioner of police to treat with that. So we have concentrated effort and dedication looking at this very important aspect and things. So it allows us to be more deliberate, and this is what we do every day to ensure that our public spaces are kept safe and also our roadways are properly used and are safe. And so I think that is a significant benefit for any state. Right? One of the most visible sign of the state's ability to govern is the roadway and your public spaces. And so that is how awesome the responsibility is. And that's how we see our responsibility as an entity.
Okay, talk to us about the role of the officers in this branch.
Right. Again, as the name suggests, public safety,
Yes.
traffic enforcement. And so our role is to ensure that our public spaces are kept free from harm, and also that our road compliance is maintained on our roadways, and that we have safe roadways and stuff like that. In achieving that, we have to work very closely with other agencies, and we have a significant role where that is concerned. However, it is not public safety and traffic enforcement itself, and compliance on our roadway is not solely a policing function. Even though our major response, we have a chunk of the responsibility where that is concerned.
What are some of the agencies that you would work with to
All right. And so when we look at the policing is a means to an end when it comes to particular compliance on the roadway. So you're trying to change our behavior, and so that is the end.
Yeah.
And so when we issue citation tickets, there are other things that needs to be done. Persons now have to either pay the fine, or they go and face the court, and so that's another agency. And so we expect that the courts now hold up their end in ensuring that the process runs smoothly all the way through.
Yes.
Now we talk about engineering of our infrastructure. And so we look at places like NWA, that I'm happy to say that we work very closely together, and we're getting very good cooperation and excellent response from NWA and stuff. But engineering safety and compliance in our infrastructure is very critical to maintaining road safety and stuff. And there are several other agencies that we've worked with. We are talking about the Island Traffic Authority, Transport Authority, that issues road license to public transportation. We have to work very closely with them to ensure that persons who are vested such awesome responsibility are persons that have of the type of character and that level of responsibility, so that they can take our children to and from school. And so, it's a whole team approach in treating with this.
ACP, we've been witnessing an upsurge or increase in unruly behavior on the streets.
Right.
If you listen to the radio, if you read the newspapers, that's what you've been hearing. How do you plan to deal with that?
All right. Again, it's a multi-agency approach that we have to take. And the first thing we start doing is to seek collaboration between all the agencies that are responsible. I think we have left the situation for far too long and haven't given it the type of attention that it requires. And so persons who want to do wrong basically are left too much freedom to get that done. And so persons are able to rack up 1,000 tickets, yet insure their vehicle, renew their road license, renew their driver's license, and stuff like that. And so the deterrent effect is not there. And I am really hopeful for the new Road Traffic Act, and I really hope that some of the venom in the sting that is required to ensure compliance and ensure deterrence from certain behavior exists within it. Enforcement, of course, we have to ramp up our enforcement, but I just want to put it on record that we have been enforcing. When you have an organization that issue in almost approximately 500,000 tickets per year, that is enforcement. When you find a single driver that is issued 1,000 tickets, it is 1,000 times that the police have enforced that.
But how does that help? They're still there behaving.
Exactly, that's the point I'm making.
Yes.
And so I'm saying that from our side, this is the extent and the scope of what we can do. What we expect now is other agencies of the state to cause that person to learn a lesson and stuff. And so the person should not be able to, right?
But sir, on some roads, if you talk about motor vehicles now, on some roads, you know that people are always going to be behaving badly. Why isn't the police on those roads? For example, some of the roads I use every day, you see people making 3-4 lanes. Where's the police? I know the police can't be everywhere, but I mean, at least you would get some feedback that these roads really people are unruly. Why aren't you present?
I'm happy you asked that question because, in response to your question, I won't be seen as a complainer because I'm responding to your question. But the calls I get every day, oh, I wish I could satisfy all those requirements. When you're briefing your men, one of the first thing I do when I brief my men and women before they go out in the mornings at 4 a.m. is to tell them thanks for being there, because it's an awesome responsibility, and the demand is there, and I'm not complaining about the demand, because demand is made of you when there's value for your service. So when the public demand things of us, we like that, we appreciate that. However, we can't satisfy everywhere that, and no society, I think, can. What happens and why other societies survive is that there is a respect for the rule of law and that social contract. And so for the few who choose to deviate, then police can deal with them. Here, when you have so many things happening all over the place, we need more than just police chasing behind people. We need more than that.
What do you need? What else?
We have proven to everyone, the citizens of this country, that we are up to the task, we are willing, and we will prosecute persons. We will issue them tickets and citations. And once that is the scope of what we do. We just expect that once that is done, persons are not to be allowed to rack up 1,000. It's a ridicule of our system. And so what we ask is that just for us to be mindful that we are satisfying a means to an end. Change in behavior is the ends, and that will be achieved when there are serious consequences to that behavior.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's take the break here and continue with more on traffic management by the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB. Stay with us.
Motorists, when driving on the road, here are some simple reminders. Look out for and extend courtesy to all road users. Give plenty of room to pedestrians, especially in wet weather. Drive slowly. No bother wet them up. Slow down when approaching a pedestrian crossing or school, and always be prepared to stop. Remember, a school zone is a 30-kilometer zone. Cut your speed. Drivers of large and slow-moving vehicles should always keep in the far left hand of a dual carriageway. Keep it simple. Drive left and pass right. These are just simple reminders of your road duties. Drive safely.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We continue our discussion with Head of the Public Safety and the Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB, ACP Kevin Blake. Now, we were talking about unruly behavior and so on. Tell us about some of the violations that persons, not just motorists, but people who are moving around in public spaces. What are some of the violations that it can be ticketed for?
Okay, all right. So for in public spaces and for public safety, there are a number of violations under the Town and Country Act, a whole list of them that I haven't committed to memory. Yes. However, things like illegal vending, obstruction of traffic, blocking pathway for persons to pedestrian to walk, littering and stuff like that. So these are some of the things that we can ticket.
But we don't ticket people for littering at all, basically.
Well, it's actually someone. Give them someone. You see, sometimes when you have so many things happening and such breakdown, you know, it's very easy to not see or not being able to prosecute all that you see, because there's so many other serious things happening around. But
so we really need an education campaign, right?
Exactly, we need the education. We need first of all citizens to understand and be aware of their surrounding, and not only of their rights but their responsibility. And we need majority of our citizens to act responsibly in the public spaces, and so that will give us the opportunity to treat with those few who wouldn't.
PSTEB was rolled out first in Kingston, St. Catherine, and some other resort towns, with an intention to move towards the entire island at some time. Right. Where are we with that?
All right, we're going well. I mean, we one of the things that we have done is the PSTEB's establishment coincided with probably one of the most difficult time in our era in traffic management, and it was last year September at the commencement of the several major roadwork in Kingston, and that's the time when it was launched. And so our primary effort at the time, because we have to be responsive as an organization. We have to treat with what is the problem at hand at that time, and we have to reshape ourselves in order to address that challenge. And so we were predominantly dealing mainly with traffic enforcement and stuff like that. However, the public safety component of PSTEB, we have been rolling it out, but it requires some more work. And so now that things are somewhat leveling off, the roads are being completed and stuff like that, we're now looking at further implementing that aspect of our public safety. In terms of our traffic management, however, and also public safety, the organization, the former traffic headquarters, highway and patrol headquarters, that there were offices within each divisional HQ. So we have 19 geographic divisions. So every division we have a traffic component. PSTEB now will subsume those offices, and that model will be replicated in all divisions and stuff. So that's what.
Okay,
so that's
great.
Really
Earlier we were talking about the number of tickets that some people manage to get, and they're still on the roads behaving unruly. I hear though that something is coming to help with that situation.
Certainly.
Tell me about it.
All right. And so our traffic ticketing system, a more effective, a better working traffic ticketing system would have helped us, and it would have prevented persons to be able to rack up so many tickets. One of the challenge with that is that unpaid tickets, that once a ticket is issued to you, it's a citation. Once you don't pay at the tax office, if you have the opportunity to, then it automatically becomes a summon for you to go to court. And if you don't go to court, usually a warrant is issued. Now that process is a bit time consuming in issuing the warrants, because it has to be manually written up and stuff like that by the judge and checked. And so what is being rolled out now under the Ministry of National Security is an automated warrant management system to better able to manage these the issuance of these warrants. And so we'll find a lot more of these warrants being issued, and so we can now start having people account for this.
So how does it work? I get a ticket and you plug that in into a web-based system, and then
yes, it is. There always exists a system, an electronic system to capture the ticket information. That an aspect of it, that information goes to the Inland Revenue Department so that they know whether or not you've paid. Once the date has passed and you haven't paid, then that ticket that you have in your hand becomes a summon. So you have to go to court on the court date that is there. Now, all of that electronic information will be available at the court. And so now, rather than just looking at paper and physically writing up a warrant, the judge can cause a warrant to be issued. So the process will be much faster. And so whilst the judge is required to see the warrant, to actually do all of that, the information on the warrant, like the name of the person and stuff, that is already in a system.
It's going to still go back to the judge?
Yeah, well, the judge has to issue a warrant. I don't think that can be.
How is that going to make it easier?
It makes it easier because rather than having to write the warrant itself, put in everybody's name and the address and all of that, and then sign, now the judge can have something where that is already filled out, because that electronic data is already sitting there. And so to actually physically write that over. And so that is where the system we're going with that.
Okay, and we understand that should be in place.
Well, the commitment we got, as the minister had announced, is one of his presentation, is that by the end of October, I think.
Yes,
I think that's what he said.
Okay, we're looking forward to that.
We're looking very much forward to that.
Let's talk about reasons why your motor vehicle could be seized.
Okay, all right. So there are 7 reasons why you can motor vehicle can be seized. 7 offenses under which one is having no road license, operating contrary to road license, operating an unlicensed motor vehicle, obscure license disc, as is on your windshield, obscure registration plates, registration plate not affixed or kept affixed. And so if you see a registration plate falling off and you do nothing about it and keep driving like that, or registration. You see, sometimes people put registration plate on the back dashboard and stuff.
That's a no-no.
Yeah, those are it. And also unregistered motor vehicles. So those are the 7 reasons under which you can seize.
Those are the 7 reasons.
Yes,
right.
7 offenses.
Right. What offenses? Right.
Yeah.
Now, what should someone do if they think that their vehicle was seized without just cause?
Allow it to be seized and then seek redress.
Okay.
Do not try and stop the police.
Okay.
Right? It is, and that goes out not just for seizing a vehicle, but for arrest. I see there's a tendency for Jamaicans, a lot of our citizens, I don't want to generalize and offend people, it's just a number of our citizens sometimes intervene when a police is conducting an arrest because they believe it is a wrongful arrest. Well, it is not for the resident to decide, and it's a very dangerous practice. It's dangerous for the police officer. It's also dangerous for the citizen. So, and so we will implore our citizens. There's a way in which, if you're being arrested as an assistant commissioner of police, if a constable chooses to arrest me, he will not get a resistance from me. But he has to very well make sure that it is a lawful arrest. Because I know there are ways and procedures in which to deal with it. So we implore our citizens, do not interfere with the police when conducting arrests. There's an agency in the state that's responsible for that, not citizens. You don't try a case right there on the street.
Okay. ACP, you have a very difficult job.
Yes.
What would you say to motorists now watching this program? What are some of the things that we can do as citizens, motorists, pedestrians, using public spaces? What can we do to help you?
All right. So for the road users that always comply, continue to exercise a level of intolerance, not aggressive intolerance, but intolerance to the extent where you will photograph what you see, video or tape what you see, send it to the police, and be prepared to go and give evidence to that. So we'll say that. And for the motorists that believe that driving on the road, you must always commit offense. We ask that you just be responsible. Remember the danger of that machine that you operate, and the danger not only to yourself but to other motorists and pedestrians. And so we ask that, and when only adults are issued license in Jamaica. And so, we ought to be able to take command and control of ourselves first and foremost. And so we ask and implore. I was talking to a bus operator this morning and remind them that it's a noble profession. But we have made our operators sometimes have made the profession, so put it in so much disrepute and discredit the profession itself. I want to help them bring it back to its noble state. And in doing so, some people obviously may be hurt, because some people may lose their license, some people. But we're going to bring it back to a state where people will see it and see a bus and a taxi operator in Jamaica and say, there goes a professional.
Yes. Very good and sober note to end on, ACP. Okay. Thank you so very much for sharing with us today on Get the Facts.
Thank you very much for having me.
This has been Get the Facts with our guest, ACP Kevin Blake, Head of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB. Until next time, I'm Anthros Campbell. Take care.
Businesses operating within parishes under the state of emergency, your closing time has been extended. In St. Catherine and Clarendon, clubs, fast food restaurants, petrol stations, and establishments operating under a tavern license, your opening hours are 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. For supermarkets, grocery shops, haberdasheries, and other businesses, opening hours are 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. In Westmoreland, Hanover, and St. James, business closing time is between 10 p.m. and midnight.
Teachers play an important role in the lives of our nation's children. They teach, they nurture, and most importantly, they affirm. After all, a little encouragement goes a long way.
How many is that? 20. All right, so of my population, we have strongly agreed. So let's count up all the persons who agree over here. Count 10 plus 2, 12. 12 persons agreed. Everybody understand?
very happy to know that there is a teacher who might help me if I do not understand.
Assurance means so much to our children. It's motivation for them to perform at their very best, even right here in the classroom. And my little friends, Miracle, Alyssa, Rihanna, and Latanya will agree as I ask them this very important question. Why do you want your teacher to make sure that you are learning?
Because in our future, we'll have to get some good careers and it will mess us up. For instance, if you're going to be a chef, you got to learn what ingredients to use and what to not use.
As Miracle said, it will interfere with our future if we don't get a good education or not. So it is very important for our teachers to teach us so that it doesn't interfere with our careers and our future.
Affirm me that I can learn.
What do you want from your teacher?
Like her attitude supposed to be good. So if I say I don't understand and she's doing it over and over again and she's been making up her face, I like her to work on her attitude. Well, I would like her to work on the way she explains it because it would be nice if they would go a little slower and go through it with us so that we can get to understand it properly. Affirm me so that I can learn.
Thomas, you heard the students. They say they want teachers to explain more to them. They want them to don't speak too soft or too harsh to them to make sure that they are learning. What do you say to that?
First and foremost, I do believe, like the children, that teachers have to be patient. And even though somebody may be a very good student in one subject area, they may not be a very good student in another subject area. And secondly, explanation is part of the curriculum.
What are some of the things that you do? What are some of the methods that you use as a teacher to make sure that your students are learning?
Some students understand quicker, some don't, so we can pair them up with those who don't understand, because sometimes peer learning is better than even us explaining. But I find that they understand better and they understand longer, so they remember longer when they work on it themselves, and it is the same for us as adults. So the confidence that they have help them to develop and want to learn more, even if the topic is something that they didn't like in the first place.
It is good to know that you have somebody that you can go to that is willing to help you to understand what is being taught. Affirm me so that I can learn. I feel good when my teacher gives me good comments on my work.
Keep it up. Good job. And those are some compliments that will motivate children as they go on in life.
I will continue to affirm my students that their learning benefits them.
Affirm me that I can learn.
Jamaica will host the second Tourism Resilience Summit of the Americas on October 9 and 10. The two-day summit seeks to explore tourism climatic resilience initiatives from around the world. This game-changing summit is being held under the theme, Building Tourism Resilience for Sustainable Futures. Global and regional speakers will share best practices on how to recover from man-made and natural tourism disruptions. That's the second Tourism Resilience Summit of the Americas on October 9 and 10 at the University of the West Indies Regional Headquarters in Kingston, Jamaica. The event is open to the public.
Thanks for watching another edition of Jamaica Magazine. Join us again tomorrow when we'll do this all over again. Send your feedback on today's show to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm. Also, follow us on our social media pages, download our app on your Apple and Android devices, and visit our website at jis.gov.jm for more information. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.
My name is Christelle Harris. You're watching Business Access TV. Serious about business.
Heads of government rally support for climate resilience at the UN General Assembly. The government of India deepens cooperation with CARICOM. Agriculture in focus in Belize. And Guyanese go to the polls for general elections in March. Welcome to the CARICOM News Time for the week ending Friday, 27th September. I am Tusankin English Francis.
And I am Michelle Nurse with the details of these and other stories. Thanks for joining us.
CARICOM heads of government spent the last week in high-level engagements at the United Nations advocating for support to build sustainable economic resilience in the community. They outlined specific actions that the international community should take to make good on commitments to address climate change and support small island developing states to deal with its adverse impacts. Chairman of CARICOM, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, told world leaders at the UNSG's Climate Action Summit on the 23rd of September that SIDS are the incubators of climate change and should be supported to help the rest of the world figure out how to deal with it. He said that the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development should adopt the Commonwealth Secretariat's established measurement of economic vulnerability. He emphasized the need for a dedicated fund to which SIDS can have quicker and less complicated access to finance to build climate-resilient infrastructure. In that context, he called for debt reclassification.
That how we classify the debt that we're going to incur to invest in this infrastructure cannot go on our books. Because what we may gain in physical climate change resilience, we're now going to lose in economic resilience. The sad reality is that those four things require a pen. A pen for OECD to change its policy. A pen to establish a dedicated fund for the SIDS. A pen to change the governance structures, and a pen to determine how we're going to classify the debt. And time has run out on us.
Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, in a very cogent address, reminded the UN General Assembly that the Alliance of Small Island Developing States need temperature increase in the global community less than 1.5 degrees to survive.
The science is clear, and the evidence is even clearer, that the lives of our people have been lost and properties abandoned, and these tell the story far better than any speech we can make in this great hall. The AOSIS, the Alliance of Small Island States, needs to keep temperatures increases in this global community to less than 1.5 to stay alive. Not to thrive, but to stay alive. In other words, 2 degrees needs to be taken off the table once and for all.
Her counterpart, Prime Minister Andrew Holness of Jamaica, stressed the need for climate change financing to be channeled where it is most needed.
I close by reiterating the concern of developing countries that the delivery mechanisms for climate finance are still fragmented and slow. The bottlenecks and gaps in the project investment value chain prevent climate finance from getting to where it is most needed. We are encouraged, however, by new and exciting developments, such as the Closing the Investment Gap Initiative and the Climate Investment Platform, which hold great promise and will expand to meet the investment and technical assistance needs of more developing countries.
The CARICOM chairman also addressed a World Economic Forum discussion on the theme Redesigning Today's Economic Models. His intervention highlighted the extreme climate-related social, environment, and financial risks that the region faced.
Well, most of the small island developing states are facing two things: extinction and being viable. And unfortunately, the extinction part comes first. The final nail in the coffin for us is that we become now uninsurable. So if we don't build the physical resilience to reduce the amount of economic impact and chaos that the storm causes, then we become uninsurable. So the second thing that we're trying to compete against is basically competitiveness on a global basis. And for a lot of the small island developing states, the macro rules of the IMF and the World Bank have unfortunately not been kind to us. Now here's what happens. We have the storms coming. I know what I need to do. I need to slope stabilization, broaden and widen my rivers, put utilities underground, dedicated shelters, coastal restoration programs. But I don't have the money. If I have to go and borrow the money on commercial terms, because the OECD has now classified me as a middle-income country because of my per capita GDP.
Prime Minister Chasney had several other engagements at the United Nations, including a discussion on ECLAC's Debt for Climate Swap initiative with Ms. Alicia Barcena, the Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. In a message posted on his Facebook page, the chairman said, "We are very encouraged by the commitment of the UN Secretary General to support us in advancing the ECLAC Debt for Climate Adaptation Swap initiative. This initiative will go a long way to not only expand domestic fiscal space, but it will also establish a dedicated SIDS Resilience Fund to finance adaptation projects. We look forward to the support of the international financial institutions and our partners as we continue to work towards this much-needed transformational shift."
India has strengthened its cooperation with CARICOM, granting a $14 million grant for development projects and a line of credit allocation of $150 million for climate resilience. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaffirmed his country's commitment to development in the region when he engaged CARICOM heads of government in the first India-CARICOM summit. The summit took place on the 25th of September in the margins of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Prime Minister Modi spoke of plans to develop a regional center for excellence in information technology in Georgetown, Guyana, and a regional vocational training center in Belize. He also reaffirmed India's commitment to enhancing human resource capacity in the region through specialized training. The meeting agreed that the CARICOM India Joint Commission will continue to develop and implement concrete plans to further advance trade and facilitate diversification in the region. CARICOM Chairman Prime Minister Alan Chastany of St. Lucia noted CARICOM's appreciation for India's continued partnership and cooperation with the community.
On behalf of all my colleagues, when I say that the most important question to ask is how come it took us so long to get together, given our cultural ties, our historical ties, and clearly, as you've outlined, many of the common issues that we have to confront on a global and geopolitical basis. So I am looking forward to a very meaningful discussion on, one, the opportunity that India can offer us in the CARICOM, two, the opportunities that CARICOM can offer India, and three, to talk about some very critical geopolitical issues that hopefully we can find common ground.
Frank discussions are anticipated between the private sector and policymakers at the regional agricultural meetings in Belize. A two-day Regional Planners Forum on Agriculture starts the week of activities on the 30th of September in Belize City. Program Manager for Agriculture at the CARICOM Secretariat, Mr. Sean Baugh, provides some insight into the week of activities.
We're anticipating 7 meetings across the week. Firstly, we're going to have what is the 12th Regional Agricultural Planners Forum. What is that? This year, we're doing it under the theme, capitalizing on the new frontiers in global agriculture. The aim is to have a forum that is more business facilitatory, in the sense that we want to bring together stakeholders from the private sector to link with stakeholders within the public sector. And what do we mean by that? The program has so been developed in a way that we're asking leading private sector firms who are in agribusiness to come and have a frank, open discussion with our policy makers in the agricultural sector. And we're having member states from as far as Belize, where it's been held, to here in Guyana, regional headquarters. And the aim is to outline what has been the successes, what have been the challenges, and what are the recommendations that the private sector are putting forward to our regional heads and our regional governments that can be put in place to achieve this regional trade in agricultural crops, agricultural produce, and value chain items. Now, we've invited entities from Barbados, entities from Jamaica, entities from Belize, entities from Guyana, and entities from Trinidad to meet with all the planners from the Ministries of Agriculture in the region. And from that, we expect to have a solid policy position as to what are the different recommendations, policies that our regional governments need to put in place.
Solid policy decisions are expected to flow from the meetings that will attract participation of about 150 delegates. The Food and Agriculture Organization, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the Technical Center for Cooperation on Agriculture are partnering with the CARICOM Secretariat for the week of activities. Guyanese go to the polls on the 2nd of March 2020. Guyana's President David Granger announced the date in an address to the nation on the 25th of September.
I am pleased to announce that after discussions with the chairman of the Elections Commission and with my cabinet, the earliest possible date for the holding of general and regional elections will be on Monday, the 2nd of March 2020.
The President confirmed the date the following day and pointed out that both the government and the opposition would be required under the Constitution to return to the National Assembly for an extension of the timeline for elections. Massive cleanup efforts continued around Tobago this week after Tropical Storm Karen moved across the southeastern Caribbean. The rains caused widespread flooding and landslides across Trinidad and Tobago. Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines were also on high alert. Tropical storms Jerry, Karen, and Lorenzo are currently spinning across the Atlantic basin. Trinidad and Tobago's government was also monitoring a mud volcano in central Trinidad and has warned nationals and visitors to stay away from the volcano.
Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris of St. Kitts and Nevis has welcomed the United Nations High-Level Political Declaration on Universal Health Coverage. Prime Minister Harris is the lead head in the CARICOM Quasi-Cabinet on Human Resource, Health and HIV and AIDS. In his presentation to the UN General Assembly, he said that no one should have to skip taking a potentially life-saving scan or other procedure because of the cost. Neither should they have to declare bankruptcy because of an expensive illness. And above all, we believe that equal access to health care is a basic human right. He cited the success of St. Kitts and Nevis in eliminating mother-to-child transmission of HIV and syphilis as an example of how commitment and resources can generate success. The World Health Organization's executive director said that the world has 11 years left to make good on sustainable development goals. Universal health coverage, he said, is key to ensuring that that happens.
CARICOM Ministers of Health met on the 30th of September to discuss a number of important issues on the regional health agenda. COSOD officials had their preparatory meeting on the 27th of September to guide the discussions among the Ministers of Health. The meeting was held in Washington, D.C., on the sidelines of the 57th meeting of the Directing Council of the Pan American Health Organization. Tusankin spoke with Dr. Rudolph Cummins, Program Manager for Health Sector Development with the CARICOM Secretariat, and filed this report.
Dr. Cummins said the meeting will provide CARICOM health ministers with an insight of the strategic planning process of regional cooperation in health. They will receive a preliminary report on the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, from 2012 to present to see whether it has achieved its initially identified functions. A consultancy group, which was commissioned to conduct the review, will present the preliminary report. The board of CARPHA has dedicated an afternoon session to digest the report, and its recommendations will be presented to COSOD. Dr. Cummins said the meeting will be informed of the upcoming consultative meeting between the Council for Trade and Economic Development and the Council for Human and Social Development, COSOD, on convergent trade and health issues.
Back in 2007, the heads of government proclaimed the Port of Spain Declaration. Its review 4 years ago showed that there was some implementation deficit, in particular what concerned multi-sectoral actions. And one of the concerns is actually the trade-related issues which negatively affect NCDs. We've had a task force which was prescribed by the heads of government in 2016 at their 37th meeting here in Georgetown, and we have been working to put together two matters, one concerning diets and the other one concerning alcohol. The alcohol one comes from a mandate from COTED, but the diet one comes to some measure from COTED, but also from directions given by the same 37th meeting of heads, as well as the 38th meeting where they refer to childhood obesity, which we are trying to capture through addressing dietary-related issues in trade.
The Ministers of Health will receive for adoption the new Regional Strategic Framework for HIV and AIDS that the Pan-Caribbean Partnership Against HIV and AIDS has just completed. Time will be devoted to looking at the elimination of mother-to-child transmission of HIV as well as measles. The plight of migrants, including matters related to their rights, are also on the agenda of the meeting. The Oncologists and Hematologists Association of the Caribbean has prepared a paper on the treatment of cancer, which it hopes to present as a framework to the COSOD. Dr. Cummins said the Caribbean Cardiologists Association will also interact with CARICOM health ministers in a discussion on the challenges with curbing heart attacks in the region.
We'll have a novel presentation made by a group, the Caribbean Cardiologists Association, which is trying to bring to the attention of the ministers, they've already done so with the Chief Medical Officer, the challenges of curbing the excessive mortality which we have from heart attacks. Our rates of death are about 4 times higher than in the developed world, and it's their view that we can do a lot more to curb that rate. We might not be able to achieve the 8%, which is quite low in the developed world, but we certainly can make a better try.
COSOD will also discuss matters pertaining to triangular cooperation among PAHO, CARICOM, and countries within the hemisphere, including Argentina and Chile. They will also discuss regional representation on governance bodies, including the Global Fund, PAHO, and UNAIDS. CARICOM health ministers are also expected to track the progress and see where governments can further streamline the regulation of pharmaceuticals entering the regional market. Dr. Cummins explains the other issues on the very packed agenda of the 37th COSOD on health.
We are also going to share with the ministers the travelers' health policy for their approval. The document is already in country, and CARPHA is going to do a presentation on the essential components of the program and essentially what is required for it to find full utilization within member states.
The CARICOM Secretariat marked World Maritime Day 2019 on the 26th of September. The Secretariat mounted an impressive exhibition to raise awareness of the day under the theme Empowering Women in the Maritime Community. In a message to mark the occasion, CARICOM's Assistant Secretary General for Trade and Economic Development, Mr. Joseph Cox, underscored the significance of gender neutrality in the maritime sector.
The theme for World Maritime Day 2019 serves to highlight the important yet underutilized contribution of women within the sector. It also provides an opportunity to raise awareness of the importance of gender equality in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Goal 5 of the SDGs of the UN for Agenda 2030 aims to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Shipping has traditionally been a male-dominated industry, and the same applies to many of the associated jobs and professions in the maritime community. It has been recorded that while 1.5 million seafarers daily serve on a worldwide fleet of more than 100,000 ships, it is estimated that women comprise 2% of the world's maritime workforce.
He said that CARICOM remains committed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, particularly in the maritime industry.
For more stories, you can visit the CARICOM news site at today.caricom.org or the CARICOM website at caricom.org.
Like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time.
I wanted to be an educator because I believe that education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world.
My dreams and aspiration is to one day become an entrepreneur where I can employ other persons and help to build the country.
I wanted to go into development. I wanted to help people become better versions of themselves. Growing up, I saw a lot of violence, I saw a lot of crime, I saw a lot of poverty. The challenges are so many. The first one that comes to mind is the level of youth unemployment that's here.
Challenges that exist here in West Prospect Bogwog are lack of awareness for educational opportunities or job opportunities.
Not many got a chance to do CXC or graduate from the secondary level. So that's a major setback for the people in the community.
A way to alleviate this issue is training programs.
They need more opportunities, like to go back to school to get themselves a certificate so they can be able to work and create employment for themselves and their family.
Push more entrepreneurship opportunity, encourage these youths to be creative and innovative in what they do. Give them startup capital to start their business. Invest more in the youth skills and talents.
The Poverty Reduction Program is funded by the European Union, and it really is a program that focuses on the most vulnerable type of communities, making communities safer, making citizens more healthy, better access to education.
For European Union, investing in youth is an obvious choice. They are the future of the country. If we prepare them well, they will bring the change that Jamaica needs. That's why we invest in scholarships, internship, training in life skills and mentorship.
I received a tertiary scholarship from PRP to attend the University of Technology, Jamaica. It meant a lot to me because I realized that somebody else believed in me and somebody saw the potential that I have and somebody believed that I could actually achieve my goal.
I benefited by getting firstly an internship, and also they assisted my bachelor's degree financially. But critically, outside of the finances, the persons that were on the project, the motivation that they provided, etc., it really provided a huge boost.
This is my third year at the MICO. This scholarship, it helped me to be able to focus only on my education here, because tertiary education is not cheap.
I was placed at ODPEM on the one-year internship program. It was really good. It was an opportunity for me to prove myself, to give myself a service, and also to gain experience in the working world, and to also provide for my family.
I plan to be an agent of change in my community by being a mentor, a leader, and a godfather for the youths growing up. Try to help them teach them a trade.
You don't have to be rich to help. You don't have to achieve greatness to start. I contributed to my basic school by providing them with the necessary resources that they need, that I believe that in the long run, it will have a ripple effect on many, many persons.
Professionally, I manage the whole program, which is aimed at giving young persons the opportunity to, do what I did, basically, to get their foot inside an organization. Additionally, I also have a little small business that I try to employ young persons to learn a skill, etc.
When you're persistent in life, when you're determined, when you're hungry for success, then you'll be able to accomplish and achieve anything that you want.
It has changed hundreds and hundreds of lives. Not just my life, my family lives, my friends' lives, etc. I want to just urge everyone looking on to continue these social programs. These are the solutions to the many ills that we face as a society and as a country and even as a world. So thank you, and I challenge you, continue it. It's needed.
They say it takes a village to raise a child, but the world will one day need the leadership of that child. The time you spend with your child matters. It stimulates their minds and shapes the way they act. Talk with your children. Help them to better understand the world around them and to value what is truly precious. Above all, the most valuable gift you can give them is love. Play, talk, teach, love. Take the time. It makes all the difference. A message from the Parenting Helpline and Ad Council Jamaica.
It's season 12, and Wealth Magazine Business Access is here to keep you business savvy. With an impressive mix of some of Jamaica's most inspiring business moguls, we continue to keep Jamaica informed, empowered, and ready to dominate. Tune in Sundays at 5 p.m. only on BATV.
You're watching
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access TV.
Serious about business.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters. Call us at 876-618-2870 or email us at sales@batvja.com. Business Access TV, serious about business.
Sundays at 4:30 p.m. It's all about Home Sweet Home. Get your half-hour dose of the business of real estate, from laws and concepts to reality, building, buying, or renting. Or what about trends in decor or renovations? Home Sweet Home will keep you up to date.
Caring Hands Season 3 continues to effect change in a changing environment.
Many of us were raised by grandmothers, right? So, I mean, we know the wisdom that these people have.
Going beyond business.
The little leaders of today are our leaders of tomorrow. And with the proper education, we'll have very good leadership coming from that.
That's Season 3 of Caring Hands, creating change and shaping lives, every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. on Business Access TV.
You're watching Business Access TV.
Business Access. Business Access.
Business Access.
You are watching Business Access TV.
Business Access TV. Serious.
Serious about business.
Serious about business.
Welcome to BATV's coverage of the Masters of Cardiology under the theme Cardiovascular Care and Technologies in Low-Resource Environments. Hi, I'm Javon Keys, and we're here to bring you the highlights. Stay tuned. So tell us, what was the idea behind this weekend's conference?
Well, a large part of our mission is education of not only our doctors internally, but our community doctors, because as we're fond of saying, you know, cardiology is a team sport. So if we know everything there is to know about the heart, but the people who are referring patients into us don't, then patients are not getting the best possible care, or sometimes their care is being overlooked or symptoms are being missed. So we decided that having a conference, having a formalized approach to educating our community was in order.
So for the Caribbean generally, is heart disease something that we should be particularly concerned about?
Absolutely. I am fond of saying that if we put all other causes of death and disability in a box, so whether it be cancer or HIV or murders or slip and fall, car accidents, if you put all those causes that Jamaicans and people in the Caribbean die in a box, and then you put cardiovascular diseases in another box, you would not be able to fill the cardiovascular disease box with all of those causes combined. So when we're talking about cardiovascular diseases, we usually include diabetes in there because the lion's share of diabetics die from heart disease. So heart disease, stroke, and heart attacks or cardiovascular disease as a bundle kill more Jamaicans than all other causes of death and disability combined. So we really all should care about it.
You had some big names here. Tell us how that was and the reception that you've been getting from patrons about the kind of conversations that took place.
We organized a conference under the theme Masters of Cardiology. And what we wanted to do was really to get absolute masters, people who are adjudged by their peers to be among the best of the best. And so we've got chairmen and division heads from major academic institutions in the U.S. We have the chairman of medicine from the University of Pennsylvania, the chief of cardiology from the University of Pennsylvania. We have the chairman of cardiology from UCLA, and the list goes on.
It promises to be a very exciting conference. The learning never stops. The moment you stop learning, you're dead. Dr. Parmasek has been a great leader in medicine for many, many years, and he graciously accepted our invitation to headline this event with the opening keynote lecture, and I think that is going to be very, very revealing because everything we're able to accomplish in medicine has to do with the leadership that drives it. But sometimes, there are innate qualities in leadership, and there are some things that we have to learn along the way to accomplish that. And I'm looking forward excitedly to hear that lecture and other lectures to follow. Jamaica is a very beautiful island. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth, so some of you may not have time to explore the rest of Jamaica, but this should be an ongoing series of conferences we're going to have. We're looking forward to robust collaborations with our partners that are here, and I think you will be hearing more of us. We'll be welcoming you all again here.
So we developed a multi-pronged program. We hired professional coaches for every one of the people on the leadership team for 1 or 2 years, and we developed a model to focus on what they wanted to accomplish as an individual, where they felt their needs were. Now, I was skeptical, I got to tell you, about this professional coaching. I didn't know what these people did, but as a number of people have pointed out to me, even professional tennis players still have a coach. If you can get people that have these skills, and there are organizations that teach these people, we found these professional coaching properly directed incredibly important. We started with a full-day immersion in terms of leadership and had a plenary speaker on that subject with many exercises. Then over the course of 2 years, we had, and I want to stress, interactive sessions. These were not just lectures on how to have a difficult conversations. They were simulations. They were exercises. There was peer-peer interactions in terms of getting people engaged. And we felt that this tripartite approach combined with readings, and I can again provide you with a list of the readings that we'd recommend, were what our faculty needed to develop their leadership skills. And again, this was our overall goal, to move people to the right on that 9 box, improve their learning agility, because this touched everything. And ultimately, if we were going to lead change, we needed people that were agile, that could function in multiple domains and not just focus on one trait. And this is when we looked at the 9 box in terms of where our faculty started out. This is actually what it looked like. We had a number of people that, as you're facing it on the left, were really people that tended to focus on depth, going in depth to things. We had a few people that were actually focusing more on agility. Now, the truth of the matter is you don't want to be too far right or too far left. Some people are more detail-oriented, more focused-oriented. Some are more agile. But where you really want to be is somewhere balanced, somewhere in the middle. And so this was what our curriculum looked like. We first developed a cadre of coaches, and we did some matchmaking, knowing the skills of the coaches and the skills of our trainees. We had each of the division chiefs and each of the vice chairs and division administrators do a personal Via Edge personality survey. And that tells you your own personal style. Now, I was skeptical about that. I took it myself. But I have to tell you, I learned more about myself with this little tool, and I think it was dead on than I really fully ever appreciated about myself. And we used that to inform the coaches. The only people that saw this were the coaches and the trainees in terms of what they should focus on, in terms of the development of this leader in our department. And then we started the interactive sessions. We had a few rules. First of all, we wanted people to show up. Second of all, we said, what's said in this room stays in this room. We knew people needed to expose themselves, their vulnerabilities in terms of what they needed to learn, and tell people stories about what things they had done that had worked, and also things that they had done when they had failed. We wanted our division chiefs and vice chairs to bring examples of both. We wanted people to keep all their scheduled coaching sessions. I think we insisted on about 10 hours of coaching over the course of a year. We said that nobody could send substitutes, and we basically invited our division administrators to selected sessions primarily focused on the business and finance of the department.
I'm going to talk about resistant hypertension, new and emerging concepts. I'd like to thank Drs. Bao and Madhu and Ms. Lisa. They've done wonderful things organizing this particular conference. I bring you greetings from New Orleans, which is the most northern Caribbean city. So I understand being a little bit behind in time. But I have a lot that I want to cover, and it's related to an area which I think is important not only in the United States, but also throughout the Caribbean: high rates of hypertension, high rates of poorly controlled hypertension. Here are data from the United States. So this is non-Hispanic white, this is non-Hispanic black. And over the last several decades, you see cardiovascular disease mortality has been coming down. But what you may note are two things. One is, if you take those data out to 2014, you see a plateau. It's starting to slow down in terms of the decrease in mortality. And some of the newer data are suggesting there may even be an uptick in cardiovascular mortality as we have increase in obesity, diabetes, poorly controlled hypertension. The other thing I want you to show is if you're looking at all cardiovascular disease, the top curve, the differences between blacks and whites in the United States, it's not even close. We're not talking about social science. This is dead bodies at the side of the road. Cardiovascular mortality comes earlier and higher in the black population when compared to the white population. Here are the rates of hypertension control. You can see we did well for several decades, but over the last several years, the rates of control are actually starting to decrease somewhat. Now, who has resistant hypertension, which is basically blood pressure that remains above goal despite being on 3 or more medications at maximally tolerated doses, and often that includes a calcium channel blocker, RAS blocking agent, and a diuretic. This is a paper that I published 2 years ago, and one of the markers for resistant hypertension is black race. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is genetically driven. Some of it's related to those disadvantaged status, health-seeking behavior, not having a primary source of care, and when the person presents to the hospital, the emergency room, the urgent clinic, they've already had years of poorly controlled hypertension. Living in the southeastern part of the United States, which is where much of the African diaspora came in to the United States, remains disadvantaged for resistant hypertension, excessive salt intake, and excessive alcohol intake. Alcohol raises the HDL. It has not been shown to be protective as we once thought, especially for men, 2 or more drinks. A woman, 1 or more drinks on a daily basis may actually cause an increase in hypertension.
We take a break now, but we'll be right back with more from the Masters of Cardiology.
It's Island Hour, it's Island Hour, it's Island Hour, free eye test. It's Island Hour, it's Island Hour, it's Island Hour, free eye test. Free eye testing is back and it's here to stay. Island Eyewear offers free eye testing every day, all day at all locations island-wide. Conditions apply. Make your appointment today at www.islandeyewear.com or call us 630-1180. Island Eyewear, your style, your price. It's Island Hour, free eye test.
The Good Life, your trusted source for useful health and wellness information, lifestyle tips for the mind, body, and soul. Tune in Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. on Business Access TV.
Sundays at 4:30 p.m. It's all about Home Sweet Home. Get your half-hour dose of the business of real estate, from laws and concepts to reality, building, buying, or renting. Or what about trends in decor or renovations? Home Sweet Home will keep you up to date.
Welcome back to Masters of Cardiology. Here's more. The Heart Institute of the Caribbean is the only one of its kind in the region, is it?
That's correct, in the English-speaking Caribbean.
And what kind of gap has it filled regarding the whole issue of cardiovascular diseases or issues in the region?
Hopefully, we're trying to play a role in helping to address the rising epidemic of cardiovascular diseases in Jamaica, specifically, and in the Caribbean in general. So the Heart Institute of the Caribbean as the only freestanding cardiac center of excellence, and the HIC Heart Hospital as the only heart hospital in the English-speaking Caribbean. We have provided a platform, for individuals with cardiovascular disease to have one-stop shop where they can get acute treatment and ongoing management of chronic cardiovascular conditions.
And with that, there's no surprise that you would have had this conference, Masters of Cardiology, to tell us where that idea came from.
Well, one of the part of the mandate of the Heart Institute of the Caribbean is to continue to inform and educate and continue to learn. We believe that effective cardiovascular service delivery has to be a coordinated team effort to make sure that the various aspects of diagnosis, treatment, and ongoing management are properly covered. It's impossible to deliver good cardiovascular care as a one-man. It's not a one-man sport. It's a team sport. There are so many aspects of cardiology. One cardiologist cannot know everything. It's impossible. If you have any one cardiologist that tells you he can deal with everything, then I think you have to question the sincerity of that claim. One cardiologist can also not be on call or available 24/7, 365 days. As you know, cardiovascular disease can be fatal and can be quickly fatal, and acute heart attacks can occur without warning. And so if you have a solo cardiologist, running a center, then that will make it impossible. It puts patients' lives, at risk essentially, because that person may not be available when the heart attack, strikes. So that is the kind of information patients and doctors also may not be consciously aware of. And so intellectual exchanges of best practices become very critical. And the work we do has, many ramifications. And our expertise also informs our approach. We have international collaborations. Our peers internationally recognize our competence and have respect for what we do, as we do what they do, the kind of respect we have for them. So it's shared values.
So why does virtual care matter? And we're defining here virtual care as care in which the doctor is not actually putting their hands on the patient. They are either interacting with them over the phone or video, or they're an expert who's reviewing a synthesis of that patient's records. Can virtual care really make a difference? Well, I would like to recognize Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In 1966, he was speaking at a press conference in Chicago, and he said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhuman. So the work that all of us are doing that brings us here today is not only helping a patient here and there, but it's doing the right thing. It's combating injustices, injustice and inequality in access to medical care. What can virtual care accomplish? If I'm not here laying my hands on the patient, putting my stethoscope on the chest, can virtual care really make a difference? The answer is yes. So basically, Ashifa is a woman in her early 50s who had a lump in her neck, and she was diagnosed with metastatic squamous cell carcinoma. And she came to Best Doctors, which is the company I work for and has subsequently been acquired by Teladoc Health. to have, she lives in Calgary, but she wanted to have her case reviewed by top experts in head and neck cancer, top experts in pathology, to see if her treatment, her planned chemoradiation, was the right thing to do.
I had a lump on my neck, and what happened was we got a biopsy done and it was negative. There were no issues. But my family doctor said, it doesn't belong there and let's get it removed. About 10 days after that, I got a call, and it was my surgeon. The surgeon said, Ashifa, you need to clear your calendar. No appointments, nothing. Clear it for a few months. This is not going to be a fun treatment. You are going to be living a nightmare.
Ashifa's doctors were searching, doing multiple biopsies in her throat, her tongue, removing her tonsils to try to find where did that cancer originate, and they couldn't find it. The chemotherapy that's used to treat head and neck cancers is often uses what are called platinum-based agents, and those are very toxic. They're ones that cause a lot of side effects, a lot of nausea, are very difficult to go through. And then again, the radiation, instead of just having a focused field of radiation, they were really looking to irradiate a large area of Ashifa's head and neck, hoping to get the cancer wherever it originated because they couldn't find it.
And somewhere throughout that, all of a sudden, it hit me. I've got a Best Doctors policy, and I need to contact them.
At Best Doctors, we take very, very seriously the trust that people put in us. And we recognize that it is absolutely critical always to go to the primary source, always to use the primary data, because misdiagnosis can happen anywhere. So it's not enough to just take a pathology report on face value or a radiology report on face value. We always make sure to collect the primary data ourselves and have our experts review the pathology, have experts in the field reviewing the radiology scans, because that is something that really enables people to feel very confident that misdiagnosis, if it's there, has been identified and that their diagnosis is accurate. The treatment will be there to deliver optimal outcomes.
3 days before the treatment was supposed to start, we got the magic call from Best Doctors. It said, no cancer.
Multiple top pathologists all looking at her slides to confirm that in that lymph node, there was no cancer, that the diagnosis of metastatic cancer was wrong.
The end result is there was no cancer. There is no radiation. There is no chemo.
So, and what Ashifa ends up, what she has is Sjogren's disease, which caused some very, very funny-looking lymphocytes to be in her lymph node, but it was not cancer. So, but why did Ernest invite me to speak here today? The reason is this, is that all of us are looking to improve the access of men and women and children to high-quality medical care. And the potential of virtual care to be able to be a remarkable tool in this mission that we all are engaged in it's remarkable.
We're here today in Jamaica, and a lot of what we're talking about, I think the people as I sat down listening to all these talks, the folks at HIC have done a lot of these things already. And I think, maybe looking at the model that you guys have implemented, I know you've probably gone through some rough and tumble period in building this, because as my own experience is that it's not easy to accomplish what you've done. But I've had some unique experiences in Nigeria. This is where, we need to look at sustainable options. Nigeria is a unique country with about 186 million people in 2016, expected to become the 4th largest country in the world by 2050, with about almost 493 million people. And the GDP is 376 billion, and is considered lower middle income. We've seen a similar graph for many low middle income countries, similar to this, in the course of this talk, where there's still a large percentage of the population that are young. And the healthcare system there is very fragmented. Like, as you see, there are 1,000 general hospitals, 20,000 primary care centers, and 59 teaching hospitals. But the healthcare is accessed by only 43% of the population. And that's a problem. And sometimes a lot of the drugs, they are substandard, they are imported from different parts of the world, some are manufactured locally. But so my role was to work with Heart Rhythm Society. I currently serve as ambassador for the Heart Rhythm Society to Africa, about how do we grow the practice of electrophysiology on the continent. And we started a few years ago just with some colleagues where, we first of all tried to define the magnitude of the need and some of the other things that that we may be able to do. But a lot of the services currently is limited to implantation of devices. Some of the barriers we saw was the issue of infrastructure and the cost to the patient, as I mentioned before, and the lack of trust in the medical system by the patients, and also the issue of the fear between primary care doctors and cardiologists. I heard that being that they feel they lose the patients to the cardiologists. We face the same issue that primary care doctors were afraid to refer to the cardiologists. Even we face the same issue in the United States. It's the same issue everywhere that they look. But the key is to train people that keep that patient alive first. That's how you can have a patient in the first place.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
It's season 12, and Wealth Magazine Business Access is here to keep you business savvy. With an impressive mix of some of Jamaica's most inspiring business moguls, we continue to keep Jamaica informed, empowered, and ready to dominate. Tune in Sundays at 5 p.m. only on BATV.
You're watching
Business Access.
Business Access.
Business Access. Business Access TV.
Serious about business.
Your business matters. Business Access TV offers you the most innovative and effective advertising solution for your business, specializing in B2B sales, cost-effective solutions, the customers you want, the repetition you need. No matter the size and nature of your company, your business matters. Call us at 876-618-2870 or email us at sales@batvja.com. Business Access TV, serious about business.
In case you're just joining us, we are at the Jamaica Pegasus for the Masters of Cardiology event. Stay tuned for more highlights.
When I was a single surgeon here, I would have to treat cases, cardiac cases, general thoracic cases, and there comes a point in time in that when you are the only surgeon, what do you do in relation to getting or training other youngsters to take over from your position? Because of this limited resources, we planned over a number of years to introduce the program, and we finally at the University of the West Indies introduced the DM in cardiothoracic surgery, which involved training. In the first 3 years, the members of this program were exposed to general surgery, and within that 3-year period, they had 6 months in cardiac surgery and 6 months in general thoracic surgery. Then they had the final 3 to 5 years was spent in being exposed purely to cardiac and general thoracic surgery. Now, of course, the opportunity to be exposed to these programs was limited by the number of patients that you operated on, and of course, the number of patients operated on was limited by the resources that were available to you. And fortunately, to increase the resources and the number of patients operated on, I was able to invite teams of surgeons, teams of cardiologists to visit at certain periods of time. We would investigate the patients, and we would do these cases, thus increasing the number available to our trainees. But of course, we felt that the numbers were not significant enough in Jamaica, and we arranged with our colleagues for these youngsters to be trained in facilities in other countries. Unfortunately, with this program, we have established the numbers of cardiothoracic surgeons in Jamaica now is approaching 7, and I will then hand over to our other members of the panel, because their information would increase our what we have available for our graduates.
In terms of GME training or residency training or fellowship training in low or medium resource environments, it's all about partnership. But let me say from the outside that this is not a one-way partnership. It goes in both directions. At Penn Medicine, we have some experience historically in starting a medical school in partnership with the University of Botswana. It's now in its 7th or 8th year. And I would say approximately 1/4 to 1/3 of our medicine residents at Penn actually spend time in Botswana getting a global health experience. And I'm absolutely convinced that we get as much out of this as hopefully they're gaining from our interactions with them. We also send faculty members and have an on-site director in Botswana. The point is, it's about a two-way partnership. We all can learn from each other. And I think that I'm very excited. Dr. Madhu has reached out to us about an interaction in cardiology. I was talking to Dr. Coppola, our chief of cardiology, about about sending both our trainees down here, our faculty down here, but also bringing trainees from Jamaica and the Heart Institute and the rest of Jamaica, for that matter, back to Penn for some training.
So I'm Carol Watson. I run the cardiology fellowship at UCLA. And I can tell you, when I took over the fellowship 5 years ago, we sort of reimagined the whole thing. And one of the key principles we put in there was that the world is flat and cardiology is global. So one of the things that was never a part of our fellowship before was a global experience. Since then, we have a elective rotation in Malawi. And again, most of our internal medicine residents go to Malawi, and now some of our cardiology fellowships. We have an ongoing collaboration in Malawi, where when we first went over there, we got a grant to take over 3 echo machines. And with that, we were able to quadruple the number of echo machines they had in Malawi. So they now have 4, and we have an ongoing collaboration where they we trained physicians there to read echoes, and honestly, they read echoes better than some of our echocardiographers now, and they send studies back and forth. And so that's been a really fruitful collaboration. We also now have an elective in China. We have a affiliated hospital that we send fellows back and forth with. We have a quarterly Trans-Pacific Cath conference where we take turns. They present a case, we present a case. And it's so interesting hearing how similar the patients are and how similar the procedures are, but then also how different the approach is. And so many of the approaches make a lot more sense. So we're getting as much as they're getting, I agree with you. Making sure we can offer as much as we take is important. And I will be talking to Dr. Madhu about initiating some kind of partnership with his institution, because again, what we take away and what we give, I think, is so important to our trainees, and there's no way you can train a cardiovascular specialist for the future without understanding the global landscape.
Walter Clare from Vanderbilt, and actually mine has more been focused on the undergraduate medical educational aspects of global health and under-resourced areas. So quite frankly, at Vanderbilt, we do not have formal active relationships in global health for our students, but we have a strong program in coordination with our program in public health that allows our students to have a global health experience. They do various exchanges. But in fact, at Vanderbilt, we find ourselves a well-resourced, highly technically oriented academic medical center in the midst of what we call the cardiovascular disease belt of the southeastern United States. And so to some large extent, our experience with under-resourced areas has to do with working with the rural communities in not only Tennessee, but southern Kentucky and northern Alabama. And what we basically have done at the medical student level is to get our students involved in those types of activities, as well as our own medical student clinic, which a lot of universities around the United States are doing now. A little bit of the uniqueness of ours is that we have a collaborative relationship with Meharry, one of our historically black medical schools in Nashville, and we have what we call the Vanderbilt Meharry Alliance. So we do a lot of population health with them. But what I really want to talk to you about for a moment is the fact that we have indeed, with all due respect to what's going on at UPenn and leadership, been focused on this issue of leadership at the undergraduate medical level with our students. About a decade ago, we developed a program in health and wellness for our medical students. And it started out primarily as an activity that involved extracurricular events. And then about 8 years ago, it transitioned, just about a year before I started working with the program, to incorporating narrative writing, mindfulness, public policy, leadership, and conflict management into a curriculum for all of our entering medical students. At Vanderbilt, we've divided our medical school into 4 colleges. Each of the 4 colleges has a couple of mentors. I'm one of the 2 mentors for my college, Chapman College. And so when the medical students enter our school, they're assigned to a college. It's not strictly at random, and they stay in that college until they graduate. And that includes the MD, PhD students. So I have some students who've been with us 7 years. And over the course of those 7 years, we start out with that curriculum, which involves 43-hour sessions during their first year and multiple sessions throughout the remainder of their medical school curriculum. And we do almost everything that you saw in that slide about leadership development in some form or fashion with our students. It's really an introductory level for them. And it's interesting that I've served on visiting committees to a number of other medical schools. One in particular I visited recently, and they had worked in collaboration with us to change their curriculum. And I was unpleasantly surprised to learn that much of the stuff on emotional intelligence and conflict management was not included in their curriculum. And when we evaluated them and we talked to their faculty about the problems they were having with the new change in their curriculum and the relationships that were not going well among their students as they worked in the classrooms, they admitted that they'd missed the ball on that, and that in fact they had to abruptly stop the curriculum, put it in recess for a bit, and go back and teach the students how to interact with each other. Because most of our medical students are in medical school because they have been highly successful individual learners. They have not necessarily learned how to work in teams, and that's where we find most of the conflict.
We now take our final break, but please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Career Moves has always explored interesting careers, highlighting all you may not have known about them. This season is no different.
Coming back to Jamaica, everyone's like, Fizzy what? Fizzy who?
When you find a bright boy or girl in the class and people say, what are you going to be? The parents say, you have to go be a doctor, you have to go be a lawyer. Nobody says you have to go be a politician.
Let me see your hands!
Tune in Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on Business Access TV.
Every day you wake up, you have another opportunity to make this little island better, safer, a place where we all can be proud to call home. It's time we all recognize that every little thing we do has an impact on the Jamaica we live in now and the country we're leaving for our children. So promise me this, promise yourself this. No more will we tolerate criminals, even if it's our relatives. Tell them they're doing something wrong. Tell them to stop. Tell them no more robbing our children of the Jamaica they deserve. Tell them no more crime.
Have you seen it? It's BATV Live. Live streams of business news weekdays at 7:30 p.m. Stay on point Thursdays at 8 p.m. with our Business Current Affairs show and Weekend Business Report Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. wherever you are. Log on to our Facebook page at Business Access TV or visit our website at batvja.com. Live and at your fingertips. Business Access TV. Serious about business.
Welcome back to our coverage of the Masters of Cardiology event here at the Jamaica Pegasus. Here are more highlights. How did you feel when you got the invite to come to this conference?
I think I was very privileged and honored. I was also, I think, just thrilled at the fact that a conference like this exists. I'm an academic cardiologist and I go to many conferences, I participate in many endeavors, but not all of them, I think, are, as focused on issues which affect many of us, but not everyone rises to the occasion to try to address it.
For persons watching, what are some of the recommendations you may have to the average viewer about ensuring that they are up to date regarding their cardiovascular health?
So I think one of the important things is doctors are your friends, okay? We talk about a healthy lifestyle, and in general, I think many people, maybe they are aware of it, but I think a lot of people know about the importance of keeping their weight under control. If you have too much weight, you need to lose weight. Even if you are the right weight, everybody needs to exercise, and again, diet, avoiding bad habits like smoking. So there are a lot of those things, but then to also know that there are diseases which can come on which you won't know. You don't know or feel when your blood pressure goes up. You don't know or feel when your blood sugar goes up, when your cholesterol goes up. So there are many things which are hard for you to know, but they can affect you long term. And so don't be afraid of doctors. I know that there are many thoughts about doctors, what they do, what will they do, but we've learned, especially I think in other countries, that preventing disease is the most powerful thing you can do. And as I've said, some of these are invisible things. So I think everyone should, as part of what they do, at least every 1 or 2 years, in a healthy person, at least see your primary care doctor who can screen you. And if they, discover something that needs a cardiologist, we're more, for people who have more disease, then you will get referred to us. But at least make sure you're seeing a primary care physician on a regular basis.
So what was your discussion based on today? What was your topic?
It was a lot of topics today about educational topic and real problem for training physicians here in Jamaica, and on other topics about the healthcare system in Jamaica and how to provide the best healthcare for all the patients in here. A lot of technical topics about the cardiology and the advances, the new advances in cardiology in the time being, and how can we deliver and conduct this advances to Jamaica for the time being.
What was your main takeaway from the event, the conference overall?
Yes, sure. Those conferences we are making to provide a real impact on the society after that. So it's not kind of meeting people, it's kind of re-innovation of the system and the innovation of all the revising how we are doing things. So today we had this opportunity to meet all the pioneers. This first time that this conference happened in Jamaica, and I hope that it will run every year to see all those brilliant guys over there, over here more time.
So tell us your view on this conference.
This was a very, very, very well-run, very educational conference. I'm impressed by the lineup of the masters of cardiology, the wealth of experience they brought to the meeting, and then the overall focus on cardiology management in our setting, our resource poor setting. Most of the presentations, even though we discussed fairly, cutting-edge topics, everything was brought back around to how does it impact the Caribbean people. So I thought it was a very good conference.
What was your topic or topics of focus?
My topic was on women and heart disease and special considerations for Caribbean women.
And that discussion is important because we find that more women in the Caribbean are prone to heart-related diseases. Is that correct?
It is correct. So ischemic heart disease is the #1 cause of death in most of the countries of the Caribbean, and even in Jamaica, where diabetes is said to be the #1 cause of death, that death is mediated through cardiovascular disease. So one of the issues with women is and not just women, but their providers, et cetera, and the public, people tend to think about breast cancer and other gynecological cancers as being their #1 problem. And yes, early on in the reproductive years, that is an issue. But as you get older, cardiovascular disease takes over as the #1 healthcare issue. And when you look at a population as a whole, cardiovascular disease ends up being the leading cause of morbidity and mortality. So when we talk about women and heart disease, it starts from education of the public, public perceptions on women's risk for heart disease, and trying to twist that in people's minds. Even in the primary care setting, a lot of primary care providers don't consider cardiovascular disease risk when they're seeing their patients. They think about doing the pap smears and the mammograms and all of that. But especially as the woman starts to age in their late 40s and 50s, then they need to, that conversation has to be had.
Dr. Capola, tell us about the discussion that you had today. What was your topic?
We had a very interesting discussion today as part of a session on how to have care collaborations between centers in other areas and the Heart Institute of the Caribbean. And it was a real privilege to think it through. So at my institution, we have 144 cardiologists who all have different expertise. And we discussed how that's a great platform to choose the right people and to find out who wishes to come here and collaborate in care, in training, and in research, and in reciprocally, how to engage HIC and have them visit us. One of the obvious conclusions we came to was that we need to establish a video link. What we can do to have shared care for complex cardiac problems is work together using technology via the internet to review the case, review the images around the case, and help make decisions. That's an obvious first step, and I think it's never been easier to do that. We actually do it with regional hospitals close to Philadelphia, so there's no reason why we couldn't do it here. It's just a matter of setting it up. So that will be the first step, I'd say.
So how important would you say is the kind of exchange like that for not just necessarily cardiology, but medicine in general?
Exchange is essential. I think that if you remain in a silo, if you remain just seeing what you see and treating conditions the way people around you treat them, your scope is limited. And I've been at different centers at different parts of my career. One of the first things you learn is when you go to that new place is what's universally true and what's just sort of local practice that other people have strong feelings about. That becomes very apparent. So that's a benefit to all involved in the exchange. I think it's essential.
So from today's event, what was their biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is that it all boils down to relationships and true desire to collaborate and exchange. And I think Dr. Ernest Madu has done an amazing job at building relationships, and that will be the key. That will be the key. So that's my take home.
What's one of the most important conversations you think that needs to be had with regards to Caribbean heart health?
I think one of the most important things is knowledge and trust. So I was talking to Dr. Madu, and he actually on the way up showed me an electrocardiogram on his phone from someone who is having a heart attack. People need to understand that a heart attack is an emergency, and no questions asked. You need to get to a center like HIC that can open your artery, and if you don't, you might not make it. So I think there's a lot of education that people need to understand. They also need to understand that you have to collaborate. So I've noticed that there are different cardiovascular and medical programs in the country. I'm a friend of mine, Dr. Michael Boyne, is at the University of West Indies, and I think there's lots of expertise that can be brought together here for the benefit of people. So getting out of the silos, collaborating is probably one of the most important things.
So tell us about the topic that you spoke on today.
Today I talked about sleep and cardiovascular disease. And I like to think of it as the sleeper in heart disease, because many people know of all the traditional risk factors for heart disease: high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, being active. But not many people are aware how important it is to have enough sleep. And also, that's number one. And secondly, that there are some sleep disorders, such as sleep breathing disorders, obstructive sleep apnea, that can, if not treated, can cause other cardiovascular diseases.
As it relates to heart treatment generally, and I'm sure you've probably looked at the Caribbean as a whole and some of the issues that may impact Caribbean citizens or black people generally, what are some of the recommendations you may have for the average citizen to take care of their cardiovascular health?
Okay. The first thing I always like to say is definitely know your numbers. You need to know what your blood pressure is. Basics. If you go to the doctor, don't just leave, oh, I had a visit today with a doctor. What was your blood pressure? What was your weight? If the doctor did blood tests, what are the results? What's my cholesterol? What's the good? What's the bad? Know all these numbers for yourself. Based on your weight, are you in line with what it should be? Are you overweight? So take control of your health by knowing all these numbers first. So after you know your numbers, if any of the numbers are out of line, if your blood pressure is too high, definitely seek treatment right away. And a lot of times in the Caribbean, and I hear this often, people say, well, my blood pressure is controlled, so I don't need to take the medication. No, it is controlled because you're taking the medication, so you need to continue taking the medication. And I have problems with relatives of mine. I say, well, are you taking this? They say, well, the prescription ran out. Well, although it ran out, it means you need to continue taking it. So little things like this, I think it's very important.
That concludes our coverage of the Masters of Cardiology event put on by the Heart Institute of the Caribbean in conjunction with the Association of Black Cardiologists. I'm Javon Keys for Business Access TV, serious about business.
I wanted to be an educator because I believe that education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world.
My dreams and aspiration is to one day become an entrepreneur where I can employ other persons and help to build the country.
I wanted to go into development. I wanted to help people become better versions of themselves. Growing up, I saw a lot of violence, I saw a lot of crime, I saw a lot of poverty. The challenges are so many. The first one that comes to mind is the level of youth unemployment that's here.
Challenges that exist here in West Prospect Bogwalk are lack of awareness for educational opportunities or job opportunities.
Not many got the chance to do CXC or graduate from the secondary level. So that's a major setback for the people living in the community.
A way to alleviate this issue is training programs.
They need more opportunities, like to go back to school to get themselves a certificate so they can be able to work and create employment for themselves and their family.
Push more entrepreneurship opportunity, encourage these youths to be creative and innovative in what they do. Give them startup capital to start their business. Invest more in the youth skills and talents.
The Poverty Reduction Program is funded by the European Union, and it really is a program that focuses on the most vulnerable type of communities, making communities safer, making citizens more healthy, better access to education.
For European Union, investing in youth is an obvious choice. They are the future of the country. If we prepare them well, they will bring the change that Jamaica needs. That's why we invest in scholarships, internship, training in life skills and mentorship.
I received a tertiary scholarship from PRP to attend the University of Technology, Jamaica. It meant a lot to me because I realized that somebody else believed in me and somebody saw the potential that I have and somebody believed that I could actually achieve my goal.
I benefited by getting firstly an internship, and also they assisted my bachelor's degree financially. But critically, outside of the finances, the persons that were on the project, you know, the motivation that they provided, etc., it really provided a huge boost.
This is my third year at the MICO. This scholarship, it helped me to be able to focus only on my education here, because tertiary education is not cheap.
I was placed at ODPEM on the one-year internship program. It was really good. It was an opportunity for me to prove myself, to give myself a service, and also to gain experience in the working world, and to also provide for my family.
I plan to be an agent of change in my community by being a mentor, a leader, and a godfather for the youths growing up. Try to help them teach them a trade.
You don't have to be rich to help. You don't have to achieve greatness to start. I contributed to my basic school by providing them with the necessary resources that they need, that I believe that in the long run, it will have a ripple effect on many, many persons.
Professionally, I manage the whole program, which is aimed at giving young persons the opportunity to, you know, do what I did, basically, to get their foot inside an organization. Additionally, I also have a little small business that I try to employ young persons to learn a skill, etc.
When you're persistent in life, when you're determined, when you're hungry for success, then you'll be able to accomplish and achieve anything that you want.
It has changed hundreds and hundreds of lives. Not just my life, my family lives, my friends' lives, etc. I want to just urge everyone looking on to continue these social programs. These are the solutions to the many ills that we face as a society and as a country and even as a world. So thank you, and I challenge you, continue it. It's needed.
I do have a dream, and I know you have a dream, that we can make Jamaica the place of choice for you to choose to live, to work, to do business.
We are going for the Jamaica we want. Making steady progress to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in our National Development Plan, Vision 2030 Jamaica. We have teamed up with valued partners, working through strong institutions to reduce inequalities in our society. We commit to being responsible in our production and consumption, ensuring we build sustainable communities in harmony with nature. Jamaica is making significant strides in providing quality, lifelong education for all, enabling our people to be engaged in decent work to drive economic growth, equipping men and women with the skills to build resilient infrastructure, promote sustainable industry, foster innovation, and utilize new technologies. Urgent action is being taken to manage natural resources responsibly, protecting clean water sources, ensuring access to water and sanitation for all, diversifying to alternative energy sources, conserving our environment, and sustaining life below water and on land. Jamaica is making moves to ensure healthy lifestyles for the well-being of our people. We're promoting sustainable agriculture to achieve food security, improve nutrition, and end extreme hunger, putting in the work to end poverty in all its forms.